It's on.
At this time, could we please have roll call, Ms. Byram?
Miss Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Miss Page?
Here.
Miss Quintern?
Here.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the presence of a quorum.
Thank you very much. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And at this time, Dr. Sneed, are there any approval adjustments to the motion?
No, Madam Chair, there are no adjustments to the agenda at this time.
Okay. At this time, can I entertain a motion for the acceptance of the approval of the agenda?
Madam Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. At this time, we will drop down to the consent agenda, and that contains the minutes and financial reports of, let's see, the approval of the minutes from March 21st, 2022, April 4th, 2022, and April of 2022 financial report, and the monthly school nutrition fund report. At this time, can I have a motion to accept this?
I move to accept the minutes and the reports as presented.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Monthly operating bills.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the monthly operating bills as presented.
Okay. And I reviewed those as well, so I will second that. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so dropping down to superintendent's reports and recommendation, Dr. Sneed, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, I'm sorry, back up. I apologize. I scrolled up too far and missed the public comment. At this time,
It's like,
sorry. At this time, I will open public comment. And Ms. Byram, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, ma'am. The first speaker tonight is Larry Scott.
Good evening, board members, Madam Chair, Dr. Sneed, everyone in attendance tonight. First, I'd like to say that my comments tonight are not to offend anyone, and the children and teenagers here tonight, my comments are not to make you feel unloved or unwanted. I'm a parent, and I'm here on behalf of my family. And I'll start with the resolution on critical race theory. I spoke about this back in March when we had the equities in education agenda. And so I'm not going to repeat myself on that, but I'll put it like this. On the House floor in Richmond, Delegate Nick Freitas said it like this: I've never seen a group of people so upset and so angry defending something they say doesn't exist. You don't have to look any further than the roadmap to equities and navigating equity, 52 pages back when Dr. James Lane was superintendent of instruction. And the first page of that, the first 14 pages of that is saturated in critical race theory. So I'm going to move on from that. We got another resolution that I support, and it's about notifying parents when teachers have any kind of involvement with the students involving sexual orientation or gender identity. And the most disturbing cultural trend of the last several years is the destruction of the innocence of childhood at an attempt to validate or normalize child groomers. Whether you're grooming them to be social justice warriors or grooming them to be confused about their gender. There ain't but two genders. God made you a man or a woman. Whatever you decide after that, that's between you and the Lord, and I don't judge you for that. But I raised my home, my family, me and my wife on biblical principles. Teachers should be focused on curriculum of their course. If you teach civics or math, English, or whatever you teach, your conversation should be aligned with that subject matter. In fact, the teacher exposes themselves to potential legal recourse as a result of sexual harassment from parents on behalf of their child when they venture into sexually explicit discussions. Students, as minors, are subject to their parents' leadership, discipleship, and authority regarding all aspects of life, including their exposure to public education. A teacher's political or social viewpoints should at all times be neutral, as not to affect the child and what they learn and how they are graded. In my opinion, there's only one decision here tonight. Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, it says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so you may test and approve God's will, because it is good, pleasing, and perfect." Is your vote tonight going to conform, or are you going to take a stand for righteousness? Thank you.
The next speaker is Jude Melton.
Good evening. My name is Jude Melton, and I'm a sophomore at Orange County High School. This is yet another time that I'm coming to speak out about my concerns with proposed policies and the very dangerous impact that these policies will have on the community. More and more, this board seems to be promoting their own political agendas in lieu of actually serving the needs and wants of the students. In each of these new drafts, you do not have a clear definition of the terms, and many of the concepts have no factual base. You are associating sexual orientation, which everyone has, even heterosexual people, and gender identity, which all people have, with something that should not be taught in school. You are equating these human characteristics with something that is explicitly sexual, which is not only incorrect, but very, very wrong. Falsely equating people's sexual orientation with mental health problems is both appalling and harmful. Allowing administrators to have the power to openly discuss students' sexuality is dangerous and, in fact, in violation of VA Law 2.2-3900 and VA Law 2.2-3901, Section 3 of which of these laws entitles safety to all people regardless of sexuality, gender identity, race, or religion. You should not be allowed to create policies that are in violation of state laws. In addition, your use of the notion of critical race theory is also very ignorant. This term has been inaccurately applied, and again, you provide no clear definition of critical race theory. Critical race theory is a graduate-level legal theory that is trying to explain systematic racism in laws. When you misuse this term and create policies around the misuse of the idea, you are spreading misinformation and encouraging a lack of critical thought and understanding. The reason I come here tonight was not to promote my own agenda, but because I truly feel that these resolutions are dangerous, ill-informed, and extremely regressive. I urge you to listen to the constituents and the youth of Orange, who are impacted by these resolutions, and refrain from pushing your own political agendas and work together to benefit all the students of Orange County High School. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Miss Kim Hosier.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hosier, and I thank you for this opportunity. As I look around, I see a lot of people that all have the common goal of wanting what's best in education for our students. I'm a parent of 2 students that have gone through or are in Orange County Public Schools. I've supported this school system with my money, my time in serving in various volunteer roles, and my voice. That is why I'm so shocked at the continued unprofessional, inappropriate, and harmful behaviors and actions that this board continues to display. I am so disappointed at the current board who has allowed politics to enter a non-political entity. At the last meeting, Mr. Tompkins proudly announced who he voted for and why. This is not only unprofessional, but inappropriate. Your political affiliations should not be a factor in improving education. I've reached out to voice my concern with my representative, Mr. Jones, but he hasn't even taken the time to respond to my emails. I'm not sure how you can say you serve your constituents when you won't even take the time to return emails. At the last meeting I attended about the new superintendent, Ms. Page reported that the majority of constituents wanted the new leadership to have a doctorate degree, but Ms. Quintern did not listen to what the people wanted and proceeded to include categories that she wanted, but were not representative of what the survey results yielded. What is the point of asking the community what you want if no one is going to listen? In regard to the drafts of policy that Ms. Quintern has put forward, I have to say that these drafts show a complete undereducation of the terms. The fact that you equate sexual orientation and gender identity with sexual explicitness shows that you do not have an understanding of the terms or the ramifications of such dangerous policies. There is no academic grounding to support a correlation with gender and orientation with sexual explicitness. The fact that you put these ideas together is completely illogical. Most importantly, your policies have negative implications and could be extremely damaging to many students. Your draft shows your lack of knowledge, lack of empathy, and lack of care for our students. Furthermore, your drafts want to prohibit critical race theory, but again, the draft shows a complete lack of knowledge of what this term even means or in what context this theory is taught, which isn't in public K-12 schools. Moreover, many of your claims in the drafts also go against Virginia law, which I am sure the legal community will be taking a closer look at. As a supporter of our schools, a taxpayer, a mother, a community member, I have to speak out against these ignorant, wrong-headed, and dangerous policies that you as a board are trying to implement. It is the definition of irony that our school board of education is so undereducated and trying to implement policies based on wrong information, assumptions, and individual political ideologies. I beg you to educate yourselves with reliable sources, leave your politics at the door, and do your job, which is to improve education for all Orange County students. Thank you.
The next speaker is Juliet Daniel.
Hello, my name is Juliet Daniel, and I'm a senior at OCHS. I'm also bisexual. It's part of my identity, and it's an element that makes up who I am. I've always been attracted to both boys and girls, even at a young age. Unfortunately, the LGBTQ+ community is underrepresented in the media. I wasn't reading books or seeing TV shows with a kid like me, a kid who likes both boys and girls. I grew up and I tried to push these feelings away because I thought no one else felt that way. I thought I could only like one gender and that I had to pick either boys or girls. And because of that, I hid who I was. I didn't want to be different, so I thought since I liked both, I'd choose to be straight. But sexuality doesn't work that way. I can't choose to be straight, just like I don't choose to be bi, and just like most of you never chose your sexuality. Sexuality is a spectrum. I never knew that because I've grown up in this homophobic town my whole life. Luckily, I have a beyond supportive family. At my time throughout OC public schools, I've witnessed and experienced an immense amount of homophobia. I've been in classrooms where other students wrote essays in school opposing gay marriage, been called homophobic slurs, been told countless times that I will burn in hell, and been outed by students to other students, and yet my experience is still not as bad compared to others at OC public schools. The proposal set forth by the school board will do more harm than good. It's important to represent all students, especially LGBTQ+ students. School is the one place some students feel that they can be out or use their preferred pronouns. If you allow this resolution to pass, you allow for teachers to be able to out their students and not use the correct pronouns. This in turn will lead to a rise in suicide attempts in which youth and a chance of these young kids getting kicked out of their homes because their parents aren't supportive. Kids need to learn that LGBTQ+ people exist because they need to feel represented and protected. Inclusion for all children saves lives. There are gay kids, trans kids, bi kids, and non-binary kids all in Orange County. They are your students, your friends, your peers, your coworkers, and possibly your children, and they deserve to feel seen and protected. These policies aren't about divisive content or protecting the students. The way this works is my parents pay tax dollars so I can attend these public schools, and in turn, my peers and I will be provided a decent education and given basic human rights. But now you want to be able to claim whatever you want as divisive content content, so you continue to teach us the whitewashed version of history, aka the incorrect version that you all probably learned when you were in school, and to openly parade your homophobic and anti-LGBTQ ideals to children. So let me get this straight. We pay you for decent education and basic human rights, but in turn don't get educated properly on topics such as slavery, and you don't have to call me by the right pronouns if you don't want to. And you can out me to my parents, potentially leading me to get kicked out of my house or abused because school is the only place I can be out. And even if we all spoke, it just wouldn't matter. If every parent, student, and community member told you not to vote for these policies, it wouldn't matter, because you'll vote how you want to regardless of what we say. And I'll tell you this, it just doesn't matter, because even if you pass these resolutions, we will continue to talk about sexuality, we will continue to fight for the use of correct pronouns for every student, and teachers will continue to teach what you deem as divisive content, because it just doesn't matter. It's human rights and the correct version of history, and I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but it just doesn't matter.
The next speaker is Katie Haney.
Hi, good evening. My name is Katie Haney. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. This evening, we are speaking about the rising issue of Don't Say Gay. As a parent of a gay child, this is extremely concerning to me. Over the years, I have seen my child struggle with being accepted, and so many times she has asked, why did God make her this way? Though her father and I love and accept her for who she is, unfortunately, we live in a cruel world and at times where it's not so accepting. I'm so scared that if this is passed, this may increase the suicide rate amongst the teens in our county. We all are aware that the LGBTQ community has a larger rate of suicide than any other group. So many kids come to school and lean on friends and teachers because they may not have the support at home. Ask yourself, what if this was your child, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, a friend's child, or your grandchild? Remember, we do not know what goes on at home. And I think we need to support the LGBTQ more so now than ever. Please stand up for the rights of our children. They need us, and if we don't support them, who will? I'd also like to add that it has been said that when different kinds of families, including the LGBTQ families, are discussed in the classroom, it is said that it helps children and those families feel included. And when we take this away, it creates some type of secret, which can impact children's mental health. LGBTQ teens are more likely to suffer from poor mental health, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention report. In 2019, 66% of the LGBTQ teens felt persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in the last year, compared to 32% of heterosexual teens. In the same report, the CDC found that feelings of connectedness to school and belonging helped the students. I'd also like to share this. The legislation signed by the Florida governor would prohibit Florida schools from teaching students. This also will affect us. In kindergarten through third grade, about topics involving sexual orientation or gender identity. Lessons for older grades would have to be age appropriate, which Democrats argue is so vague that it will stifle all conversations about the LGBTQ issues. This measure also allows parents to sue the school districts if they think their children have received inappropriate lessons. I will leave it right there.
The next speaker is Hannah Haney.
Hello, my name is Hannah Haney, and I graduated from Orange County High School in 2021. For those of you who may not know me or my family, I have a sister that is gay. As a sister, watching my older sister come out and have a support system has been amazing. At home, she's had support, and in school, she's had teachers and students who have loved her for the way she is. Taking away the right to speak about it would change a lot of things for the kids who are part of the LGBTQ community. This will take away the right for kids who cannot speak about their sexuality at home. This will take away the comfort that they may not find in their parents, but in their friends or teachers at school. My time at OCHS allowed me to make many friends and relationships with teachers that I will value forever. I never in a million years would think that we would have to debate this topic. I fear that the suicide rates for the LGBTQ children will skyrocket, as it's already one of the main reasons for suicide today. If we take away the right to speak about it, how will these kids have a chance to speak how they feel or speak their truth? Being a first-hand witness to watching someone grow up as gay, it isn't a choice, it's who you are. There is no persuasion through words that can make a person be gay. It's scary enough for someone to come out as gay and hope for some support for the fact that people are trying to take that support away in school is absurd. As a parent, ask yourself, if your kid was gay, would you want them to feel welcomed in their hometown? Would you want them to go to school and be an outcast because they cannot freely express themselves and possibly have suicidal thoughts or maybe even act on those thoughts? Or would you rather these children attend a school that accepts them and where they can talk about who they are freely? This world is cruel and our amendments are being taken away by the day. I believe we should be able to speak freely on the topic of being gay because there is no harm coming from it. Just because people from generations before are scared of change doesn't mean you can't accept it. This is not the 1950s anymore. This is the 2000s. Just because it isn't what you believe is right doesn't mean you should affect the people who live this life day in and day out. You're taking away a human right to express yourself freely. This is inhumane and should not be passed, as it will take lives of many to come. Schools should be a place for children to feel comfortable and express themselves how they choose to. A lot of children don't have a support system outside of school, so having that at school is so important. Would you want your child to fear going to school every day because he or she is scared of being judged or criticized? Or would you rather them feel comfortable to be who they are? For a lot of students, school is a home away from home. Going through with this decision is not only going to make students uncomfortable, but it will make teachers uncomfortable as well. You are asking teachers to put themselves in a situation that can cause many issues. It is not up to a teacher for when a student of the LGBTQ community comes out. That is a decision for them to make when they are ready. I am asking you all to please not pass this and take into consideration if it was you or your child.
Next speaker is Alan Daniel.
Dr. Sneed's School Board, I am here in opposition of the two resolutions and urge the board to vote no. I have to speak up. Sitting quietly is allowing it to happen, and I won't do that. I want the board to know that if these move forward, I will continue to push against these resolutions, and I hope these students know that there are people in the community that care about them, and it doesn't matter the color of their skin, sexual orientation, gender identity, that they are loved and they matter. We don't need sexual content resolution. This resolution mentions Senate Bill 656, which states policies need to be made for parental notification of sexual content. Orange County already meets this policy in India Alpha-G and others. It also says that identity-specific instruction materials and that they need to identify specific instructional materials and explicit concepts. Orange County already meets this in India Golf Alpha India. It also says that we need to permit parents to review instructional materials. Orange County meets this in multiple policies, including India Golf Alpha India and others. Sounds like someone didn't do their homework to see what policies we already have. And also, this says that the Board of Education has until 31 July 2022 to develop model policies to put out to us to where we can decide how to move forward. And you have until January 1st, 2023 to implement policies, which we already meet. If these are the deadlines, why are we rushing this, unless this is political? I also makes me question about 22.1-23.3 of Virginia Code, where school boards were supposed to implement policies protecting transgender students. Was this another reason why Mr. Hopkins changed the board's code of conduct from upholding and enforcing all laws to then read, take into consideration all laws? At the time, I thought it was just about mass and conflicting guidance at that time. I urge you again to revert the code of conduct back to the original wording and regain some dignity. Now about the divisive content resolution. In this policy, Quintern lists divisive concepts that are divisive to only one side. I find the lost cause narrative to be divisive. You know, the lie that says that most slaves were happy being slaves and that slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War? Why was that excluded from this policy? Like the sexual content resolution, this one is also a political ploy using hot topic buzzwords to gain favor from a right-wing partisan base and is playing politics with our children's education. We previously asked for the Confederate flag to be banned, and Ms. Quintern replied saying that she would bring forth a resolution on that, but yet we haven't seen any movement. But this passes in the Senate and she rushes something out. Makes me think that that was just an attempt to pacify and silence us. Or she learned that another school board member, Mrs. Anderson, had it as part of her profile pic on Facebook in the past. In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist, we must be anti-racist. Quoting Angela Davis, a heroine who our kids probably will not learn about if this policy is passed.
The next speaker is Laura Daniel.
Good evening, Superintendent Sneed and school board members. I stand before you today to urge you to vote no to these resolutions proposed by Ms. Quintern. First, we already have a policy in place to meet the requirements of SB 656. Policy IIA-G covers sexually explicit materials and parental notifications. I have it right here if you guys would like to look at it. If this was solely about that, though, perhaps you would have done your research better and you would know that. Instead, these policies put forth are to push a conservative agenda. These policies, which are full of hate, are specifically targeted to our LGBTQ+ youth and minority groups. I'd also like to remind the board that a few of you sat up there and informed the public that politics should not be involved with matters of the board. Yet those same peoples are the ones pushing the conservative agenda. And this board has done nothing but play politics since January. I'd also like to remind the board that when you sit up there and do your role, I should know what your political party is. Because sitting up there isn't about what political party you're involved in and what agenda they're trying to push. It truly, first and foremost, should be about the kids and all kids and not just the white kid. Is the school board ready to lose its ability to offer AP classes over these resolutions? Because the College Board has already put out that they're not messing around. Or would our school board try to stop all of our kids from going to college and just push CTE? I'd also like to mention that the lie for Ms. Quintern, you failed to bring forth a resolution banning the Confederate flag, and instead you put forth 2 resolutions that promote more hate in our school systems and in our community. These resolutions, especially the decisive content resolutions, only targets and harms people of color even more. This could promote even more racial incidences in our school, and yet they are still happening. You can't deny it. Your lie and your actions have not gone unnoticed by my family, my community, but especially by all the youth that you are supposed to be representing and supporting. Lastly, I'd like to take a minute and speak to the community. No matter what happens here, no matter what the board decides to do or not do, I want the community and our youth to know that you are loved and you are wanted. You have a place in our schools, in our communities, and our lives. You matter. You belong here just like any other kid. You deserve a safe place to learn just as any other kid. And if the school board decides to take that away from you, there are still members in our community that will welcome you with open arms, including myself. You don't have to be ashamed or afraid. If you need to speak up, I'll shout for you. If you need me to just shut up and be silent and support you, I'll do that too. But no matter what, you are not alone and you are loved.
The next speaker is William Daniel.
can you give me 1 second while my phone loads so I can get my... Okay. Hi, I'm William Daniel, and I'm a 12-year-old middle schooler from Orange County. Today I'm here to tell you why I think your resolutions are wrong and discriminative. Firstly, I'll be talking about your sexual orientation / gender identity resolution. Sexual orientation and gender identity are added in by the resolution and are not included in the Senate Bill 656. We already have policies that cover everything stated in that bill, as my father said. So this resolution just feels like an attack against the LGBTQ plus community. Not all parents are accepting with their kids being part of the LGBTQ plus community, and schools are the only place that the child can feel safe being out and being who they are. But you're taking that away from them. I hope you can see the problem that could occur, either telling parents if their child is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, or if they have different gender identity than they were born with and called before. You're putting your students in danger when they're at their own homes with this resolution. You claim, and I quote, "The Orange County School Board recognizes the parental rights in addition to the responsibility of providing an equitable education for all children," meaning you're trying to make the school an equal place for everyone. But the entire resolution is discriminative, and same thing with your other resolution. That brings me to my second thing I will be talking about tonight. What I understand from your divisive content / racial content resolution is that teachers in class are directly telling students of no color that they're racist and need to apologize to students of color in the class for slavery and racism. And the teachers are saying that it's the students of no color's fault for racism still being a thing, and also their fault for slavery. My sister goes to the high school. Her and all her friends say they've never heard of that happening, and I never knew of that happening in middle school. So I'd like to know when this happened, which school it happened at, and if you cannot provide that information, then I'm just going to assume you're lying about that event ever happening. Your solution is that there will not be any asking, talking, or teaching about critical race theory in the education's ed equity framework in school. From what I understand to you, is critical race theory is racist to people of no color, but to me, critical race theory isn't racist. It's a theory that simply states race is a social construct, and that race is a product of biased beliefs, but is also embedded in legal systems and some policies. This resolution is preventing students from getting a full and complete education by not letting students know and ask about critical race theory. That's all.
The next speaker is Miss Lisa Turpin.
Dr. Sneed, school board members. I'm going to ditto everybody else that's talking here. This is a public school system, and as such, it must represent the voices and care for the needs of a diverse population. This includes students that come from varying cultural and racial backgrounds, students from a range of socioeconomic levels, students who speak different languages or have different abilities, or who identify as gay, transgender, or any other orientation. Every child needs to be represented here in Orange County. Their life experiences and perspectives are important and need to be reflected in the curriculum we teach, the books we read, and in the policies you create. Why attempt to pass these resolutions when the state has yet to establish policy guidelines for schools? Why put this out there when CRT is not even being taught in K through 12? Have you sought feedback from our superintendent, our administrators, from our experienced teachers, from a diverse representation of our student population? Who will be responsible for deciding what is and is not divisive? Why are sexual orientation and gender identity being lumped in with explicit material in the first place? How is this school system going to work for our students when you are stripping away opportunities for an equitable education and silencing their voices? The fact that both of these were written and presented at the same time is very telling about the motivations behind some of the decisions being made by this board. Indeed, it seems that these documents have little to do with protecting the needs of our students and instead highlight a certain political maneuvering without consideration for the repercussions. These resolutions are laying a pernicious foundation with a potential to lead to further division and discrimination in our county and must not be approved. Instead, we need to be focusing on how to bring more unity to this school system, how to support, uplift, and encourage our youth, and how to raise children who are fiercely intelligent and compassionate individuals. And if there is anything that came about with your resolutions that is positive, it is bringing this room of just vibrant people together tonight. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jennifer Hines.
Good evening to the board and everyone here. My name is Jennifer Hines. I live in Locust Grove. My children attended public school and universities here in Virginia. I served as a PTA president and active school volunteer, and I care about this generation of children as well, and the children that, grandchildren that I hope will be taking classes here in Virginia as well. Virginia has a top 5 school system among the states. It's great for kids, it's great for retaining good teachers, it's great for attracting and keeping businesses that want to keep our economy thriving, and we want it to stay that way. Sadly, that could be in jeopardy should we succumb to extreme political views that seek to take us backwards and undermine acceptance of children who may come from non-traditional families or don't conform to traditional notions of gender identity. You cite school systems all over the country embedding sexual content into curriculum without parental consent, but you cite no evidence, nor say it's happening here. That's no better than some story from Facebook. You cite Senate Bill 656. Okay, that says the Virginia Board of Education will provide model policies by July 31st, and you have to adopt it by January 1st, 2023. So that's it. Why the rush? Why pursue this resolution before the Board of Education has provided direction and resources? I guess it's because this resolution seeks to go well beyond what the governor signed. Your therefore clause is so broad, it would require parental notification if a teacher mentions her husband. That's sexual orientation. A boy refers to himself as a boy. That's gender identity. Or a textbook describes a married couple. That's also sexual orientation. Now, if you really meant to say, don't say gay, please don't insult us by using this ruse of parental notification. But I will remind you that marriage equity is a fact of life in America. There's nothing shameful about it. My gosh, there's a family on Sesame Street that has 2 dads and a daughter. And your further clause is an affront to our teachers, who are now supposed to add to their many duties, outing their students. The ramifications of that are immense and completely unpredictable in every situation. So this resolution is poorly crafted and premature at best, and at worst, a gross overreach that opens the door to allowing the school board to set policies that stifle normal classroom discussion, undermine acceptance of non-traditional families and LGBTQ students, and in that final further clause would endanger student privacy and may well threaten, not protect, parental rights. This is not Florida, this is not Texas. This is Virginia. I urge the board to reject this political theater and this resolution and continue to ensure a safe and welcoming environment for all teachers, students, and their families.
The next speaker is Kurt Hines.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Hines, and I live in Locust Grove, and I hope it's okay to say that the previous speaker was my wife. I'm here today to comment on the draft resolution based on Executive Order Number 1. As one who's drafted and supervised the drafting of many resolutions over a 39-year career with the federal government, I found this draft to be appallingly vague and poorly supported. First, the whereas clauses largely consist of loosely connected and, dare I say, divisive buzzwords which are presented as facts but without any evidence or context. Let's look at some examples. Quote, divisive content is appearing in school curriculum across the country. It should be curricula. What objective evidence do you have of this? And more importantly, this is Orange County, not the rest of the country. If there's a problem here, identify it and fix it, but please don't try to justify it with what may or may not be going on elsewhere. You're a local school board. Act like one. Quote, divisive content ignores and replaces the true history and current social structure of the United States of America. What exactly are you using as benchmarks for true history and the current social structure? That's a big and charged assertion to make with undefined terms, no examples, and no discernible relevance to Orange County, to the operative clause of this resolution, or even to the governor's definition of inherently divisive content. Quote, critical race theory endorses discrimination of individuals based on race. Well, those are some loaded words that may reflect one political point of view of CRT, but are hardly a factual basis for action, especially since CRT is not taught in Virginia schools. How do I know this? The drafter of the resolution at a candidate forum last October said so. Quote, no, critical race theory isn't in our schools. So what is the problem you're trying to address here? The operative paragraph of the draft resolution says, quote, the Orange County School Board declares that critical race theory and the former Board of Education's ed equity framework shall not be part of its training program, curriculum, or materials in Orange County Public Schools. So you're, quote, declaring that CRT, which you've acknowledged is not in Virginia schools, and the ed equity framework, which was already rescinded in February by the state superintendent, will not be in Orange County schools. As a policy statement, what are the local superintendents supposed to do with that piece of political grandstanding? Your policy manual says, quote, when a proposed action of the school board affects existing school policies, the existing policy and regulation, if any, shall be referenced so that the effect of the new action will be clear. This draft resolution is woefully insufficient in that regard. I suggest you go back and do your homework before considering a poorly drafted, unjustified, and unnecessary resolution that does nothing to address the actual needs of our students. Considering the very real challenges that students and teachers have faced over the last 2 years with the COVID pandemic, this tilting at windmills comes across as a cynical, counterproductive, blatantly political waste of time and effort. Thank you.
The next speaker is Susan Taylor.
Good evening, school board members. I'll keep this quick. My name's Susan. I reside in District 2. I've lived in the community my entire life. My mother, my sisters, myself, my nieces, nephews, my son, and I have a daughter. They've all graduated from high school. I have a daughter in the school system now. I'm specifically touching on the sexualization resolution. I want you all to assume that we're coworkers, we show up to work, and we're having a sexually charged conversation. I'd likely lose my job, you'd lose your job, and we'd be subject to sexual harassment charges. With that being said, I'm looking for the answer to why a teacher or a public school employee finds it acceptable to have a sexually charged conversation with our minor children without parental consent. We have educators literally fighting for the right to have these conversations. We should be asking why. I do recall being taught to never keep secrets from my parents, as I'm sure a lot of you have been. Why has our society flipped the script to teach our children to do the exact opposite? Lastly, the person that created this flyer I'm not homophobic, and I'm not racist. I'm simply a mother that would like to preserve the rights of a parent and leave sexual conversations with adolescents to parents and trained counselors. Thank you.
The next speaker is Aletta Strickland.
Good evening. My name is Aletta Strickland, and I'm a licensed school psychologist in private practice in Louisa, Virginia. I don't live in Orange, but we're neighbors and enjoy a friendly high school football rivalry each fall. I've had some clients who attend Orange schools. What you do as a board affects our greater rural communities. I'm here to speak to you regarding the resolutions you presented at the April 25 meeting regarding sexually explicit materials and divisive concepts. Since that meeting, I imagine that many people, including the Washington Post, are telling you what they think and asking you to take specific actions. I'm not going to do that. As a therapist, I'm just going to ask you to check the facts of your assumptions and see if you've utilized all of your resources by seeking the information you need to make rational and helpful decisions for the children. Did you think you were premature in bringing up these topics before you received guidance from the Virginia Department of Education? What was your urgency in doing so? Some of you are new on the board. Have you completed your VSBA training? Are you aware that another school system in Virginia lost a case when they discriminated against a student and had to pay $1.3 million on top of their own attorney's fees? Are you being a good steward of Orange County taxpayers' money? Did your school board attorney review the documents? Which experts in child development did you consult with? Which curriculum development specialists did you consult with? Do you know how much an accepting school climate improves academic performance? Do you know how feelings of exclusion and being an other decreases it? Did you consider how your actions might be off-putting to education professionals and negatively affect your ability to fill 82 vacancies on your website, or even lead to more resignations? Did you consult with your current school-based mental health staff to include school psychologists, school counselors, school social workers, and school nurses on how these policies may negatively affect your most vulnerable students? These are qualified professionals who are on your payroll. Did you consider that each of these professions have an ethics code? And do you know if what you are asking them to do violates their ethics? How would you expect well-trained professionals to respond when you ask them to violate professional ethics? Are you aware that self-harm and suicide in Virginia children has been increasing since 2016? Do you know how many risk assessments for suicidal ideas and how many threat assessments for desire to harm others were done in your schools just this year? In conclusion, I think these are all reasonable questions that taxpayers who provide your salary deserve an answer to. VDOE will likely utilize all of these experts and more when writing model policies. But most importantly, your duty is to the students of Orange County. Ask the right questions of qualified professionals, listen to their responses, and incorporate them. Thank you for your time and attention.
The next speaker is Ellen Wessel.
You're going to hear that same 82 number in a couple of seconds. I'm Ellen Wessel, and I thank you for allowing me to speak. I have read and reread these two draft resolutions, struggling to understand how they further the school board's stated mission to, quote, improve the future by empowering our students to value learning, reach their full potential, and achieve their goals. I take it on faith that this refers to all students. Assuming so, these vaguely worded resolutions would only serve to confuse and alienate staff and students from each other. I implore you to devote your valuable and limited time to addressing the most critical issue we face right now, which is the wide chasm in learning opened up by 2 years of a pandemic and the corresponding loss of teachers and other key positions in school personnel. I looked at the 82-plus job openings today on the OCPS website. They include teacher vacancies in science, math, English, Spanish, and reading. Do we have data on how many teachers we're losing to neighboring counties? Do we have any idea how many more talented teachers are considering leaving Orange County? No doubt it's too many. If you're not already doing so, I would think that visiting Virginia colleges and universities to actively recruit teachers and having strategies for retaining them would be your top priority. I urge you to vote no on these vaguely worded resolutions that only serve to confuse and alienate staff and students. Please direct your energy on how Orange County Public Schools can best help each child rebound and reach their full potential.
The next speaker is Rachel Carlton.
Hello. My name is Rachel Carlton, and I'm here to speak to you as a resident of the town of Orange and as a mother of 3 children that attended Orange County Public Schools. My youngest, Solo, is a junior at OCHS. I want you to know that I'm here out of the deepest respect and love for our children, our schools, and our community. I also want you to know I'm here because American democracy demands inclusion. And inclusion is the basis of love and acceptance, which is the only way to raise our children. This is why I'm asking you to vote against these 2 resolutions. Please, Mr. Johns, vote against them. Passing these resolutions means that you are creating a systematic drive of unequal education and unequal access to education for our minority children in our public schools. It does not matter if you personally do not believe in equity, because the United States of America does. As an Army brat, I was born on an Army post, and I was blessed to live in various regions of the United States. And as a member of a military family, I have witnessed firsthand the sacrifices that women and men give to serve our country and defend our Constitution. They have given their lives to the words that we hold to our hearts, like my brother, who served 2 tours in Iraq and lost his friends serving our country. They serve because they believe that all men are created equal, and those words have been defined by our country, backed up by federal law, that all men, all persons, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, language, social, economic, and background, are equal. This is one of the most proudest, one of the most proudest moments of a parent was when Orange County Public Schools condemned racism and stated Black Lives Matter on June 15th of 2020. This anti-racist resolution understood that injustice persists in our country and in our county based on race. And that hate has no place in our schools. It demands in your resolution that the constitutional rights of every person in our community should be protected, and for us not to be silent when there's an act of racial injustice, because we should model acceptance of all people. So as a mother, I am so confused as to why Orange County Public Schools would be so hypocritical to create these 2 new hate-filled resolutions that do the very opposite of what you exclaim on your very own website. I'm asking you to do your part as leaders of our school system, to live up to the words of the anti-racist resolution by voting against these racist and prejudiced resolutions that promote white supremacy, create hostile learning environments for our African American children, our Latino children, our Hispanic children, our LGBTQ plus children, our white children, and other minority children. These resolutions will only reinforce racism and recreate an achievement gap that mimics the racist errors of the past and unfairly target children based on race and sexual identity. Please do not forget that in the U.S., suicide is the second leading cause of death between 15 to 34-year-olds.
I'm sorry, Ms.
61% of our LGBTQ youth have attempted suicide once in their lifetime.
Ms. Carlton.
And at least one attempts every 45 seconds in our country. There is no two sides to this resolution. There's one side. And since so many leaders exclaim their love of God, I'm asking you not to forget John 15:12. This is my commandment, that you love one another even as I have loved you.
Ms. Carlton.
The next speaker is Solo Tatwa.
Hello, my name is Solo Tatwa. I am a junior at OCHS, president of the youth club, and co-president of the ASI club. I've dedicated my entire academic career to doing well in the OC school system, so I was disheartened to see that in the midst of AP exams, SOL tests, and graduation, the school board is passing such drastic resolutions that will change the lives of every single student and teacher involved. Not once has the school board came to the student body to ask what we need. As a black man, time and time again in this school system, I have been treated as if I am lesser than my white peers. Rather than helping these issues, I have been disregarded and infantilized at every single instance. By passing these resolutions, you're not only actively participating in the harm of our student body, but instigating and condoning it. It is absolutely imperative these resolutions are not passed. In a time of recovery our student body is going through after the deep melancholy we experienced from losing a year to COVID-19, our mental and physical well-being is getting attacked by our own school board. There is no sides to this issue. This is not a politically affiliated matter. You are either for the harm of our children or you are against it. My skin color is not divisive, and our gender and sexuality do not concern you.
The next speaker is Janie Latham.
Hello, my name is Janie Latham, and I have two children, one of whom has graduated from Orange County High School and one who still attends. And I am here because I am the foremost expert in my children. No one knows them better than me. Not their father, not their friends, not their teachers. However, I am not an expert in all things. I'm not an expert in curriculum. I'm not an expert in teaching techniques or childhood development or mental health or medicine, because I'm aware of my limitations as a parent. I rely heavily on experts to help raise my children and have them be the best humans they can be. So that said, I have to ask, what experts did you all consult before determining these new policies? Did you check with teachers and guidance counselors about their own professional ethics and best practices? Did you ask BRVGS, the College Board, or Germanna Community College about the effect of banned divisive content and allowing students to opt out of required curriculum? And I have to say real quick to other parents here, I'm saving thousands of dollars because my daughter is going to graduate a semester early from college. I hope the rest of you all have that opportunity to have that happen as well. So on to divisive content. I'm another person who feels it's very poorly defined. I'm lost, really, at what it means. I would love to see some examples of what is currently being taught in OC that will not be allowed to be taught anymore. I did notice, though, the statement that says divisive content ignores and replaces the true history. So let's take a moment and think about that. Every moment in history contains multiple viewpoints. Let's consider the history happening in this room right now. So when I go home, I'll write in my journal about how I felt and what I had to say today, and I'll include the unanswered emails that I sent and all of the research that went into those. And some students here, no doubt, will get home and they'll take to social media and they'll talk about what they've seen and how they feel about it. I'm sure there are some teachers here who might be taking some notes to share with their other teachers, and then their school board meeting minutes are being kept. So what of those things is true history? I would argue that a compilation of all of those things is the truest history. Is it divisive to examine history from multiple perspectives? I argue that true history is multiple perspectives. To include voices historically ignored makes history richer, more relatable, and more accurate. I want to end with a message from a county teacher who says, "We are highly trained to do a job. What we teach is already visible. Take a look at Canvas. We don't need anything else to regulate it. We need the space to do our job." You all need to vote no on both.
The next speaker is Andrew Cowherd.
All right, thank you everyone for having me tonight. My name is Andrew Cowherd. I'm a middle-aged, cisgendered, straight white male, which means I basically hit the privilege lottery. So when I came here tonight, I was really honestly worried that it would be a group of 10 people in a room and me and my wife standing up for other people who couldn't be here tonight. So I feel really great to say that I don't feel deserving of these 3 minutes. And so thank you for all the teens and kids and other kind parents that came here tonight to stand up too. I don't know what else I can say that hasn't already been said. No one clutched their pearls or gasped when I said that I was cisgendered. So obviously it's not a sexually explicit charged term. In your resolution, you state that Senate Bill 656 requires school boards implement policies ensuring parental notification of sexually explicit content. I agree with that. They also define sexually explicit content to be things that I won't read here because they're sexually explicit. So I don't understand how you can equate sexually explicit content with gender identity. It doesn't seem to offend any of you that I'm a white man standing up here and that I say I love my wife, who's a woman. So I don't understand how you put those two things together. Now, the bill does go on to say that it gives school districts the opportunity to be more specific in what they consider sexually explicit material. So I guess you're within your duty to put this forward, but I just want you all to understand that if you vote yes on this, it is all on you. You can choose to make the right decision tonight. You can choose to make the wrong decision tonight. And I don't want to take up anyone else's time because I really do feel undeserving to be up here and speak when so many other people here have shown up as well. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jeremy Shepard.
Dr. Sneed, Madam Chair, and members of the board. My name is Jeremy Shepard. I live here in Orange County, in the town of Orange with my wife and children, and I also teach right here in Orange. The first thing I want to talk about is the divisive teachings resolution. If this resolution is passed, we need to know what a divisive topic is. We need to have a list of all divisive topics. Is civil rights divisive? Slavery? Nazism? Federalist, anti-federalist arguments, states' rights, is that divisive? Is Christopher Columbus divisive? Do I skip certain state standards because they're divisive? As you can see, if this resolution leads to policy, there's going to be a lot of clarification that's going to be needed through documents, paperwork, to make this applicable at a classroom level. I understand this is a national political issue, but I am not worried about national politics. I don't teach in Hollywood, California, Boston, Massachusetts, Orlando, Florida, or even Richmond, Virginia. I teach right here in Orange County. So I think this school board should focus on issues that can improve our schools in Orange County, Virginia. Neither of the resolutions being addressed tonight have had any impact on our county that I know of, and in my experience. Both of these resolutions will create a more divisive and unsafe environment for our students and faculty. The focus on national politics may get likes on social media or build political cachet, but I think we need to focus on things that have an impact on our schools and our children. There are many things that do need attention from this board. It is my belief that all of the following things are more important to our schools in Orange County than either of the resolutions being proposed. One is chronic student absenteeism through the 2021-2022 school year. I've discussed with my colleagues how alarming amount of absences we've had every day, and it makes it difficult to progress and to keep a steady momentum in lesson planning in a classroom. Class sizes that have sometimes reached over 30 students in a classroom. We know that lower class sizes improve students' experience in the classroom and allow teachers to give more attention to each and every one of their students. These numbers are getting too high. Not having enough classrooms to accommodate the number of teachers needed in schools. Teachers don't have their own classrooms to plan in. This is counterproductive when teachers need to make modifications to their rooms, to use their supplies for planning and for grading. These last two issues should be even more pressing as our community grows and even more neighborhoods are rumored to be built and constructed. Teacher pay rates that are not competitive with other surrounding school districts. I know that the board recognizes this issue and are working towards improving pay, and I thank you for that. But this is going to stay an important focus in the foreseeable future. Issues with transportation, such as hiring more bus drivers. This has led to many students being stranded at their schools, no transportation throughout the year. This happened to my daughters multiple times. You know, luckily at the high school I get off early enough that their bus doesn't run, I can go pick them up. But I know there's a lot of parents in this county that aren't out here about this. I know that you guys can do better. I know these solutions, these problems aren't easy, but we need to make our school board system better for all of our students. Help our teachers be better. The school board needs to stop being distracted by politics and focus on what needs to improve in Orange County.
The next speaker is David Atwood.
Good afternoon, guys. How we doing? Wow, it's a lot of strong opinions in here tonight, and I can honestly say that I don't disagree with everything that I'm hearing. You know, the reason why I'm here tonight is I'm going to tell a story about the 2018 and 2019 school year. At that point, I had two of my children who are now in 5th and 4th grade. They were, at that time, in Unionville Elementary School. They were in 2nd and 1st grade. So there was a play that always came around that was called Hugs and Kisses. Okay, we were always notified about this play. It dealt with things about inappropriate touching and things like that. And so we were always notified and given a opt-out form if we didn't want our kids to participate in that. And we always opted them out of it, and they went to another classroom, they went to the library, read books, whatever. So I don't remember the actual date, but I do remember it was during that school year. I picked the kids up from school, and they're both very upset. So we're talking about a 2nd grader and a 1st grader. They're both very upset. And I said, what is going on? And I said, what happened at school today? We had to sit through this play, Hugs and Kisses, and they were telling me all about it. I'm not going to go into detail because we only have 3 minutes. But, you know, I felt extremely violated by that. So I'm not telling you guys to pass the resolution or to not pass to pass it. But what I'm saying is that there are those of us who, kids at a certain age, the parents need to be in control of those things. The parents need to be able to opt their children out of things like that. And so that was our experience. We didn't agree with it. I confronted the principal at the time about it, and you know, she basically didn't have a reason why, but I just felt that it was wrong. And I think that's something that, especially for younger kids, the parents should be notified about things like that, whether it's materials or plays or anything that comes around. So that's just definitely something for you guys to chew on and think about. All right, thank you.
The next speaker is Catherine Young. Catherine Young. Okay, we'll move on. Megan, I'm going to say this wrong, Brancato. Megan Brancato. Okay. Griffin Floyd.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by addressing the school board directly. You said in your April 25th draft that content in classrooms across the country have embedded sexual material and divisive content into course material. Do you have any examples of this content? Have you reviewed any samples of sexually explicit or racially divisive content used in public schools in the United States and discussed the impact that it could have on school children in Orange County? Have you examined how educational materials are replacing the true history and social structure of the United States? Or are you simply giving in to a wave of purse-clutching hysteria without taking the time to review the facts for yourselves? Don't answer, that was rhetorical. In addition, not every child in Orange County has a safe place to go home to, much less if they're part of the LGBT community. Mandating that school staff forcibly out children's identity or orientation to their parents, regardless of the nuance of their individual situations, is a decision that could cause children to suffer bodily harm at the hands of abusive guardians. Do you want that on your hands? Because of this, I implore the school board to reconsider this proposed action. Lastly, for those of you who are unaware or misinformed, I'd like to clear the air. Critical race theory, per the Brookings Institute, is a law school level course concept that states that U.S. social institutions like the criminal justice system and education system are laced with racism embedded in laws, regulations, rules, procedures that all lead to different outcomes on the basis of one's race. What part of that statement endorses racial discrimination as you claimed? I'd gladly wait here all night for anyone in the audience to find an example of that, but I only have these 3 minutes. Critical race theory is taught in law schools. I graduated from OCHS in 2018, and with respect to the teachers and education I received, we never discussed anything remotely approaching legal theory during my time in Orange County Public Schools. I'd like to finish by pointing out the irony of the proposed action. By putting the interplay between race and U.S. history under scrutiny, the Orange County School Board is confirming the veracity of critical race theory, namely that the United States education system is embedded with racism in its rules and procedures. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Megan Whitney.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As a parent of 2 children in OCPS and as a mental health professional who has treated children and adolescents for over 10 years, I am deeply concerned about the harm you are inflicting on students that you are sworn to protect by drafting and considering the resolutions brought for discussion this evening. The resolutions appear to target racial minorities and LGBTQ+ persons in our schools to feel shame and guilt and to question their self-worth. The pandemic has created a strain on the mental health of our children, leading to a dramatic increase in children with anxiety and depression. Currently, over 90% of my caseload as a therapist is made up of children and adolescents who identify as LGBTQ+. The final paragraph of the sexually explicit content resolution leaves me deeply concerned about its impact on the mental health of students in this county. By requiring parents to notify by the school about how a child self-identifies, you are putting these children at risk of even greater danger. They are already at a greater risk of self-harm and suicide than any one of their peers, and one of their biggest fears is being outed when they're not ready. Studies have shown that one of the protective and resilience factors in these youth and leads them to have better outcomes is a supportive and welcoming and inclusive school. The draft states without any proof that content in classrooms across the country have embedded sexual material into curriculum without parental consent. I seriously doubt that you have proof of this happening in Orange County, much less in the classrooms across the country. So it becomes more clear to me that this resolution is really designed to further marginalize LGBTQ persons. The resolution will not prevent youth from identifying as LGBTQ+. It will not protect heterosexual children from being exposed to their LGBTQ peers. What it will do is make them feel unsafe, unworthy, which will lead to deep, serious consequences on their mental health and may even lead to their death. By promoting this resolution and passing it, you are telling these children they are not worthy of the educational environment as their heterosexual peers. In fact, you are telling them that they are a threat to those peers. Likewise, on the divisive content resolution, your message to students of color is that their history is so disturbing, they will have to learn about it elsewhere. For all these reasons, I strongly urge you to vote against these resolutions.
The next speaker is Abina Apia Fori.
Hey, my name is Seikoum. I am a 2019 graduate of Orange County High School and a current third year at the University of Virginia. Yeah, and my brother is currently a senior at OCHS. Okay. As a Black student growing up in Orange County in the Orange County school system, I was always left frustrated by the lack of representation in the history and English curriculum. For my senior year BRBGS research project, I found that Black and Hispanic students score below their white peers in math and reading, graduate from high school at a lower rate, and are less likely to go to college. Research shows that the creation of real-life connections in the classroom results in new knowledge acquisition and retention. Unfortunately, students of color oftentimes become disengaged and disconnected and disinterested because of predominantly white school systems like OCPS do not reflect or incorporate their cultural differences. During my senior year, I tried my best to make amends to this by gathering a group of my classmates with the same frustrations at the same school board to advocate for diversity in the curriculum. I'm incredibly saddened to see that after 3 years later, things have only gotten worse and the school board wants to remove inclusive representation in the school system. As a queer student, I never felt safe or comfortable enough to be my true self thanks to the unaccepting culture at OCHS. It's devastating to know that the school board is now trying to create a more hostile environment for gay students by banning any talk of sexual orientation or gender identity. LGBTQ youth are at a higher risk of suicide because of how they are mistreated and stigmatized in society. If this legislation passes, students will be at a higher risk of suicide. If the Orange County School Board truly cares about students, these two legislations will not pass. That's all. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anastasia Snyder.
Hi, I hope you all are having a wonderful evening. My name is Anastasia Snyder. I'm a 17-year-old transgender woman. I have been transitioning since I was 14 at Orange County High School. I have been receiving life-saving, gender-affirming care since I was 15 years old. During my time at the high school, I have experienced firsthand transphobia and homophobia from former students and even former staff. The resolution that is being discussed about sexuality will not only harm trans students such as myself, but also every queer student who is a student of Orange County schools. Removing content in schools that contain information about sexuality and gender identity is an act of transphobia and homophobia. As someone who has always known they were queer since they were very young, I have dealt with internal shame and guilt for most of my entire life for what gender I am attracted to, as well as dealing with medical gender dysphoria. I never had any acceptance of queerness around me growing up. I always thought everything I was experiencing was wrong according to society, which led to a development of self-hatred for who I am throughout adolescence. If I was taught in school at a young age that my gender identity and my queerness and my sexuality was supported, I would have saved me years of struggling with my mental health and self-harm and everything else. During my 2019-2020 school year at Orange County, at the very beginning of my transition, I self-identified as a different name other than my previous legal name, whilst not informing my parents. School was one of the places where I desired acceptance the most. Having a new name that matched my gender identity made me feel included and confident going into school every day on days I would be struggling. It was very important for me to have a place where I could express my gender identity safely for when I could not at home. And I'm sure many trans and queer students can say the same. I asked the school board to rethink their feelings on this resolution of sexuality, as I know this will harm trans and queer students in Orange County schools. Thank you.
The next speaker is Patride Owens.
Good evening, OC and the school board. As the Orange County Education Association president, I take no pleasure in speaking here tonight. I have said for months that the teachers would walk. Many have turned in their resignations, retirement documents. With the proposed resolutions, I have heard the rumblings of teachers who had planned to stay, now planning to leave. Teachers who have come to me have noted the racist, homophobic, one-sided ideology that does not consider any opposing view from anyone that does not agree with the resolutions that are dividing our county. Decisions continue to be made that are causing something sweet in Orange to sour. The forecast for the school year in 2022-2023 cannot be projected with traditional ideas. The focus and energy should be on how to find qualified educators for our children. Whichever way this vote goes, the schoolhouse will never be the same. Please note that fewer teachers are graduating in education. Those who are seek more lucrative paychecks and are avoiding the 1860s Southern thinking communities. As a parent, it is my job to protect my children and teach and guide them. I don't think we should have educators trying to report if a child is LBGT to parents. Shouldn't they already know? I need my son's teachers to focus on the rigor of preparing him for college, not being constables for other parents who can't face the truth in their families. Please, OC, deal with any issues you have at home and don't bring them to the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse has more challenging issues. I also need my son to feel the curriculum includes him, and you are proposing it does not. As a resident, I am heartbroken that after my husband and I separated from active duty, we moved to Orange County, Virginia to our forever home. We defended our beautiful town to our family and friends that this was not the Orange County of 1600 to 1900, where blacks were deemed inferior. Now I am starting to wonder. The guise to hide between critical race theory is transparent. As a black family, we see at least one of your resolutions is racist. You have ignored the subject of students wearing Confederate Southern pride attire, while black students catch racist taunts regularly for just being black. Note, the only CRT in OC is that students are learning is cultural responsive teaching. Board members of the board, you speak of equity, yet you stricken the word from a previous resolution. Your job is to protect the education of all students in this county, not just the ones who may look like you or whose parents think like you. Thank you.
The next speaker is Robin Horton.
I've called all of you. I've gotten really angry about things in the past, so I wrote it all down tonight. At every email that you send out, at the very bottom, there is fine print. The Orange County School Board does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, political affiliation, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, marital status, status as a veteran, genetic information, disability, or any other characteristics protected by law in its employment practices or education programs. Correct? You all sign your emails with your names, with that there. The race solution affecting kids in the LGBTQ plus community is just appalling. I mean, honestly, you have children. You should know better. I want you to look at the kids back there because no one is looking at them. No one is looking at the signs that they have made. That the brave kids have showed up to tell you what they want. These are your constituents. These are our children. These people deserve to be heard just as much as a straight white person. Every person deserves to be heard. Furthermore, this is going to open up the district to really expensive lawsuits. A lot of them. Because I've talked to lawyers, and I know for a fact it will. Will help. Wasting money that's desperately needed for teachers who are criminally underpaid, for buses that didn't run this year. We didn't even have enough bus drivers. We didn't have substitute teachers. My daughter was bullied because there wasn't even a substitute in the classroom. And school upkeep. I mean, this is money that we need to be putting somewhere else. Why are we going to waste it on lawsuits? And this doesn't do anything for anybody, except politically. Furthermore, it's meant to intimidate and punish teachers who, by the way, don't even have time to eat their lunches in the class. They have to eat lunch, by the way, in the classroom. They do not get a lunch break. Our teachers do not get a lunch break. They make minimum wage, basically. They are not trying to teach sex ed on the side. They don't want to. They want to get those kids reading. They want those kids to pass their tests. They are there to educate. They're not there to corrupt them with some kind of political agenda. If you bar teachers from acknowledging the LGBTQ plus families are part of our community, that is discrimination. It's inherent discrimination. You'll have to prohibit anybody else from mentioning a straight couple. Like if you can't show a gay couple, you can't show a straight couple, because that's discrimination. It's basic. It's equitable. It's the right thing to do. And I'm looking at you, Chelsea, because I've spoken to you on the phone. I know you have kids. I know that you want what's right for children, and I know you want children to be accepted in their school. These kids deserve to be accepted. And they have an ally in every parent in here who showed up to talk to them. Look at them. Look at them. Look at them. Look at them. Seriously, Chelsea, turn and look at them, Chelsea. These are your constituents. You can't even look them in the eye.
The next speaker is Sully Carter.
Hi there, Dr. Sneed, members of the school board. Let's see, is that a bit better? It seems that you guys have chosen to drink out of a fire hose tonight. The only silver lining that I really see is that you've managed to fill the room and you've got a lot of people here. The interesting thing is where you stand. You stand in the Taylor Education Building. And this was a school that was built to house all the children of Orange County at a time when they weren't all allowed in the same classroom. And about 500 yards that way lies the foundation of a former school, a segregated school. So here you stand. I don't think you guys have time for this. You've got bigger things to do. You've got 82 vacancies to fill. You don't have time to invent political controversies over something that doesn't exist. This community works best when everyone's included and everyone has a place. As I look around this room, I see a lot of faces I know. I see former students of mine, and I feel a lot of pride that I had something to do with them being here in this moment. I'm glad all the voices are being heard, but I think it's pretty obvious that you're off base here.
The next speaker is Allison Sappington.
Of course, I came after the tallest person. Can you hear me? Is that okay? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The two resolutions proposed for our schools seem to be premature echoes of a misinformed political climate that's taking over our country. I'm concerned that these will create environments that question the validity of certain members of our community as their cultural histories, personal identities, and family makeup can no longer be openly discussed. In one resolution, neither critical race theory nor divisive content have been defined, but both have become provocative political buzzwords. Before passing a resolution focusing on these terms, prudent governing would ensure that everyone, especially school board members, understand exactly what such terms mean and clarify that to the community as a whole. Regardless of these terms being carelessly thrown around, most folks in this county wish to have their children educated in historical facts without whitewashing and wish to ensure that classrooms are a safe space to discuss differing opinions regarding how history impacts our world today and in the future. That's the purpose of education. That's why you're here. Instead of using negative terms that provoke anger, let's develop a resolution focusing on teaching our youth critical thinking skills, civic engagement, and civil discourse, skills that are lacking in our society as a whole. Although this room right now might make me a liar on the civic engagement. It's beautiful. The other resolution states that discussions relating to sexual orientation and gender identity are sexually explicit. Every single one of us has a sexual orientation and a gender identity. Where do we draw the line when one child talks about their moms and dad, or their mom and dad during class, and another talks about their moms or their dads? Is the latter child sent to the office for discussing a sexually explicit topic? Members of the LGBTQ community and their families deserve to be treated with respect when in a school setting. It's well documented, as many have already said, that LGBTQ youth have extremely high rates of emotional trauma and suicide due to the inability of some community members to allow them to feel safe. This resolution will only isolate those youth more and exacerbate the challenges that they face. Please rethink these resolutions that are looking for problems that don't actually exist and are instead provoking divisiveness in our community. The resolutions don't promote free speech, a value that most of us share. The resolutions aren't rooted in family values, since they don't acknowledge the diversity of families in our community. Instead of passing these resolutions, let's work together for an inclusive, humanizing, and emotionally and physically safe environment for all.
The next speaker is Jackson Hamilton.
I am Jackson Hamilton. I am a sophomore at Orange County High School, and I simply ask that you listen to what has already been said here tonight by the parents, teachers, and students of this county and vote for what is best for them and this school community and not based on your personal political beliefs. To be clear, I am urging you to vote against these two resolutions which will be harmful to our students and our school community.
The next speaker is Alyssa Waller.
Good evening, Orange County School Board members and all community members in attendance. I am Alyssa Waller, a well-known advocate for our Orange County Public Schools children. In your work session and call meeting on April 25th, 2022, Board member Chelsea Quintern presented two proposals regarding implementing two policies, one being a policy to ensure parents will be notified of sexually explicit content, healthcare services, and critical decisions affecting students' physical, mental, and emotional well-being, including but not limited to self-identification. The other, CRT, or critical race theory, and the former Board of Ed equity framework not be part of the Orange County Public Schools training program, curriculum, nor have materials available in Orange County Public Schools. I would first like to bring attention to some questions I'd like to ask Mrs. Quintern and other board members. Has the Orange County Public School Administration witnessed any of these teachings being suggested in your proposal? What is the board's clear definition of critical race theory? Has the board been advised that critical race theory, although the concept is more than 40 years old, it is primarily taught in graduate school, not in grades K through 12? Better yet, critical race theory is not even listed in the Commonwealth Standard of Learning. As much as you would like to avoid the discussion of race and race relations, children of color do not have that option in this country. As a woman of color, I can easily testify and give fact-based examples of how children of color must always be conscious of race because it affects everything around them, including how they are perceived by others and the ways they are expected to behave. Speaking with members of our community this school year, there are several examples where children of color have had to deal with race relations in school and made to feel like their concerns have not been heard or their feelings are invalid. Imagine being so ashamed of your children's heritage or sexuality, you want to remove it off the table for any conversation. Children of color face that now and have since the inception of historical education. Most children of color learn real truths about this country, including the state of Virginia, outside of the classroom. Anytime you have members in this community older than myself, not saying I'm old or anything, but who don't know who Nelson Mandela was, or what was considered Black Wall Street, we have failed our children as well as ourselves. When children enter classrooms at the start of the school year, they form connections with their teachers, and teachers take them under their wing as if they were their own children. Although it is a parent's responsibility to be active enough in their child's life to create a relationship where their children feel comfortable to come to them for anything, and parents are obligated to be in the know of any questions one child may have regarding sexuality as well as current events, including race relations, we all know that just isn't the case. Children fear disappointing parents, being punished or shunned by parents and family. Your proposal limits others who may be able to assist children in navigating such difficult topics. In resolution, since I'm being beeped, I would like to say that suicide rates and self-harming rates have increased greatly. With these resolutions, that would even increase more. With that being had, if those things happen, that would be a cross for you, Chelsea, to bear.
The next speaker is Julie Alexandrian.
Hello, my name is Julie Alexandrian. I'm a doctor of educational psychology, an educational administrator, an educational professor, and diversity education, special education, and gifted and talented education are my 3 areas of expertise. My goal is, and has been as a teacher educator, is creating discipline, or creating spaces where all youth feel welcome and successful. I should also say, I am also a lesbian, a mother, and a local farmer here in Orange, where I live with my wife. Integrating and creating safe spaces for kids, all youth, is so important. And Maslow's hierarchy of learning, hierarchy of needs really shows, and it is one of the basis of almost all educational pedagogy, that what we know that students need to feel welcomed and they need to feel safe so that they can fully learn and fully succeed to where they can go. When we eliminate or oppress different groups, all youth feel oppressed. It is not just the one group that you are doing. It is negatively affecting all, and we've seen this throughout diversity. And in fact, there's one study that showed that in communities where LGBTQ youth were accepted and fully accepted, the suicidology rates, self-harming rates, all went down for all youth. And in fact, the largest margin that went down was for heterosexually identifying males. So don't tell me that this is just going to protect a certain group of kids. This shows that all kids benefit from having a safe environment and a safe place for school. And we've also seen that when youth feel safe in school, they go to school. I've heard the high rate of absenteeism that is happening in many, many places. When youth feel safe, they're gonna go to school, they're gonna learn, and they're gonna fully meet their expectations. We need to make sure that youth feel safe in school. And one of the other leading things that we see for youth succeeding is having someone who is a confidant, someone who can be their strong person, who can be their guide. And that person sometimes is at school, and that person needs to feel, the youth needs to feel safe with that person, and not that that person will disclose what they're saying, that they can make the choice of when they make the choice of when they come out. And also equity. Are you going to have all teachers telling parents when they're heterosexual children that their children are the same identity as their birth certificate and their gender? If you expect teachers to tell one group, you need to say that teachers then need to tell all parents. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Patricia Wyville.
Dr. Seed, Madam Chairman, school board members, and fellow constituents.
Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. My name is Patricia Wyville, and I'm a citizen of Orange County. I am here to address the proposed resolution entitled Sexually Explicit Materials Resolution. Several days ago, I read a newspaper article printed in the Washington Post whereby an anonymous teacher from Orange County said in reference to the resolution that it was, and I quote, a clear instruction to out students to their parents. Also written in the article by the reporter was, he said teachers in the district estimate that at least 80% of students who are members of the Gay Straight Alliance Club are not out to their parents. What the teacher just said, and I paraphrase, as an educator within your school, I know things about your child that you, the parents, do not know anything about, and that a majority of these children would be ratted out if the resolution was passed. I translate this to mean we know what you don't know, and we have control over your child, and this resolution would change that. Exactly. There should be nothing in our schools that the public and, of course, the parents don't know about. The power belongs to the parents, and this is where it should stay. We are talking about minors, are we not? Going back to the article, first, I'm not sure that a club of this nature belongs in our schools, and secondly, not knowing exactly how many children belong in this club doesn't matter. Any number is not too small or inconsequential. Why? Because for every single solitary child who makes up that number, there is a corresponding parent who is being denied their parental rights. This is manipulation and indoctrination, pure and simple. As I was surfing the web, I found an article titled, What Were the Original Goals and Purpose of the American Education System? Taken from that article, and I quote, the progressive approach attempted to teach critical thinking skills to an engaged and informed citizenry. Now I ask you, what is wrong with that? This was the opportunity given to our children who were educated in the 1890s and up. I would hope that we would all agree that our country has benefited tremendously from this teaching. But critical thinking skills have become a lost art because it is no longer taught in our schools. Why? Because it provides freedom. Freedom to think and act without undue influences. Freedom to read and hear varying opinions. And most of all, freedom to have trust in the truth you find and the power to negate those who try to convince you otherwise. So why do we need to support these resolutions? Because we care about our families, our community, and most of all the child who becomes the future. We must fight to save the souls of our children who will form the future of our country. The foundation and education of our children should be guided and formed by the parents. Thus, I ask the board and the community at large to support this resolution. Thank you.
Couldn't even get changed to James Brown.
The next speaker is John Floyd.
Good evening. I am the parent of 2 Orange County students and a third who recently graduated. I've watched a lot of boys and girls in this county grow up into eloquent young men and young women. I'm very proud to see them here tonight. I ask you to vote against the 2 draft resolutions. Honestly, I don't expect to change your hearts, but I really hope I can reach your minds. Regardless of where you stand politically, it is clear that these draft resolutions are poorly developed and poorly worded. They won't stand up legally unless we spend millions of dollars that we need for education fighting for a political agenda the county doesn't hold. While the resolutions do include catchphrases used to trigger fear in individuals who may worry about what a child may learn when out in the real world, the resolutions just don't stand up. At the very least, the Orange County School Board should defer action on these resolutions until such a time that the professional staff can assist them to write resolutions that can actually form the basis of policy. We can't just go on how we feel today or how we feel what might happen. Moving forward, students, teachers, parents, and guardians of children in the schools and who are eligible to be in the schools should come together and have an opportunity to develop the future curriculum. I'm all for local participation in education, but not for claiming to speak for parent rights while putting forward a hate-filled agenda.
The next speaker is Terry Pace.
For the opportunity to speak. I didn't see anything hate-filled in these resolutions. I think that they were directed so that our education opportunities for our children are based on academics, on the extracurricular activities that they do, whether they're sports or drama or art or music, that's the focus, not sexualizing our children. That is wrong, and parents certainly do need to know what's going on in the school system, and they are the #1 advocates for their children, and no teacher or administrator has the right to interfere with the values parents instill in their children. Now, certainly, we saw this during Hitler's time, during Mao's time, oh yes, indeed, and during Stalin's time. So they came to they used the children to get rid of the parents. Parents have an obligation and a right to know what is going on in the school system. And there should be such rigorous activity in academics and the extracurricular that there is not time to talk about sexuality. Why are we sexualizing our children when the whole world is out there to do all sorts of productive things? And this kind of sexualization is not productive, and it's not the right place or time. And the propaganda that's going on in this room today is very disappointing. It's important that we stop this kind of woke propaganda on our school children. There's no place in the school system for that. And to out parents and not let parents know what is going on with their children in the school system is evil. Thank you.
Do you want to
The next speaker.
Okay, order.
The next speaker is Miles Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. I am Miles Johnson. I graduated from Orange County High School in 2020, currently a political science pre-law major at Longwood University. I came home from college last Saturday to see your April 25th draft in regards to divisive and sexual content that is embedded within Orange education. In combating, and as I look onto a school board where I do not see my representation, this is kind of heartbreaking because I thought, But anyways, continuing. In combating critical race theory, you state that it is divisive content. I oppose that excuse to limit the information given to students of Orange County. In the political climate today, the #1 problem that divides Americans is ignorance and misinformation. And the fact that you call critical race theory one of these problems is deeply ironic to me. Critical race theory displays the racial problems that are so deeply sown into America's history and current society. It is not a tool to divide an already divided country. It is merely a bridge for future generations to cross into unity. It addresses problems within institutions and society which would help the youth effectively eliminate those issues for the betterment of our nation. In the problems within in the United States, anti-LGBTQ plus legislation and movements are of the rightful problems today. So I ask you, as public administrators, why would you force the school administration to tell parents about their students' sexual orientation without their consent, knowing that traditional values in the household keep students from doing it themselves? This only causes more problems than it solves, as we can see. I can only imagine how unsafe LGBTQ plus students that live in homophobic households feel when they're at home, and now that school has shown that they do not care for them, it only makes their matters worse. When I graduated from Orange County High School, I was under the impression that we only take forward steps. Now, 2 years later, I come back to my hometown to see the only steps that are taken or that are being took are backward steps. I hope you truly evaluate these resolutions and make the best decision for our community as a whole. Thank you.
The next speaker is Beth Herndon.
Hi. My name is Beth Herndon. I'm a 2003 graduate of Orange County High School, a resident of Orange County, and I have 3 children that are students in the Orange County school system, and I'm finishing up my 14th year teaching history and government at Orange County High School. As an educator, I want to tell you a part of my educational philosophy. A cornerstone of my teaching is we the people, not just as the 3 most important words of the preamble of the Constitution or 3 words that should be memorized, but what those words mean and how those words have evolved since the ratification of our Constitution. Those words live in my classroom, not just as our history or as our story, as our foundation of American government, but also of a goal and ideal that we should work towards to achieve as a country. Do you consider this true history? For those of you that do not know and have not been in my classroom or are not a former student of mine, I am also We the People educator. We the People is a civic competition at the regional, state, and national level where students must argue and answer to a panel of judges and then must defend their reasoning by answering questions from those judges. I've seen our Orange County students successfully argue the role of freedom of speech for private social media companies, question the secrecy of the Constitutional Convention, defend civic virtue through freedom of religion, present a 21st vision for the United States and foreign policy, and many other intellectual arguments that do not have a right or correct answer, but have a well-defended or constitutionally supported answer. Are these considered divisive topics? As a teacher, I'm disappointed in these resolutions proposed because of a lack of trust that you'll have in us as your teachers to not do our job. Students have a right to feel safe in our classroom. Students have a right to investigate the beautiful and powerful yet hard history of America. Students have a right to discuss, ask questions, and facilitate debate in their classroom. Will this still be allowed? As a parent, I'm disappointed because I do not think these are issues in our classrooms in Orange County. My children have been blessed to spend their school years with amazing teachers that they have loved and cherished. These teachers care for these students and have done an amazing job educating and encouraging my children. I trust them. Do you still trust them? These resolutions show a lack of care, knowledge, trust in teachers, parents, and students of Orange County school system.
The next speaker is Denise Lohr. Denise Lohr. All right, the next speaker is Seth Duncan.
Before I give my introduction, one thing I do want to say is I'm surprised that you've all kept your focus here on the podium. But I realize that the only reason why you kept your focus here is because you don't want to face the crowd of people out here who have come to oppose these resolutions. My name is Seth Duncan. I am a co-president of the African American Scholar Institute and the co-president of the African American Club in Orange County. And I'm here to oppose the racist and discriminatory policies that the school board is trying to implement in our schools. I don't understand why the matter of critical race theory is such a serious topic that y'all feel like y'all have to get out of our schools. Learning real history the way it happened and not the whitewashed, Eurocentricized version that we learn now is important for black and brown kids all over this community and all over this country. It is also important for the non-black kids who want to be educated right along with us because they know that what they have been taught and the ideals that they know came from people who were raised by racists and bigots. But honestly, I think that everyone who wants this policy set in place is scared of their kids finding out that their parents are wrong in the ways that they think. In our county, most black kids don't know anything about their heritage or history or the people who came before them because it's not celebrated or respected like white history is. The amount of knowledge I gained when I took an African American history course topped everything that I have learned in all my years being in school. I'm a junior, by the way. So that says a lot, that one semester taking one course taught me way more about history than what I ever learned in a regular mandated class. I think that you all are just afraid of the educated black men and women that can come out of these counties because you know that with that knowledge, we can all make a change in the way that the social stigma is now. I think you're more scared of your children and the people that look like you learning what really happened in history. Knowledge is power, and you are all afraid of black people gaining that power. It's proven. That's a fact, because every time an educated black man or woman comes along trying to make a change, they're either killed or silenced for the efforts on trying to make things more equal. And the policies that are being put into place now are doing the exact same thing, trying to silence black history and black voices so our current leaders can widen the divide and inequality bigger than what it already is now. I mean, we live in Orange County, let's be honest. This is one of the most racist and homophobic counties around this area. And most black kids don't even feel safe or comfortable living in this county. I would tell you to walk in our shoes, but from the fact that you can't perfectly define critical race theory, I don't even think y'all will be able to tie those shoes I'm telling you to walk in. So, these motions on removing critical race theory will not do anything but create more ignorant people stuck in their ways like you all are. And I'm standing here to oppose these policies being put in. Say no to the vote.
At this time, there are no more public speakers, and I will declare,
I didn't get a response to my email, but I signed up. There were like 3 or 4 people who had to leave, so they didn't get their turn. Could I have my 3 minutes?
What is your name?
Michael Lemon.
Okay, I don't have an email from you in my email. So.
Do you need a motion?
I grant you permission.
Thank you. I really appreciate you giving all of us this time to speak. It's a very heated discussion. I wrote a long speech to give that it's been said by others better. I was raised in a loving household to believe love can conquer anything, whether that be racism, homophobia, or whatever. I'm ashamed of what I see. This is a matter that's really important to me. I was in the middle of organizing. I'm a singer-songwriter on the side, and I was organizing a concert to raise awareness for racism. It dawned on me through the news and the media that that's too limited. I'm raising awareness against hate in all forms, homophobia. We have so many more important things to do in our school system than to worry about what sexual preference of the kids are. It is an embarrassment to me to be a white man. My wife is Peruvian. She's talked about how she felt around here. I dismissed it as, oh, you're just reading into things. She doesn't want to live here anymore. And she's not. I'm trying to stay here, and my daughter, who I completely adore, informed me a couple of years ago that she identifies as being bi. It was a great experience because she was so worried and so concerned about telling me. She was shaking, literally shaking. And I'm like, what is wrong? What's wrong? Dad, I need to tell you something. I think I'm bisexual. I'm like, that's it? That's it? I thought you were going to say you were pregnant or something. Oh my God, you're giving me a heart attack. I don't care what sexual preference you are. I just want you to find love. I am proud of who you are. And to have a school system where you're going to rat out kids if you find out they're not heterosexual is just completely idiotic. A public school system, not private. Private schools can put their own spin on things and do what they want to, but a public. Public schools mean you are paid by the taxes of the citizens. Is it just a heterosexual citizens? Is it just a white citizens? No, all citizens. You have no right. How dare you think that you can sit up there and tell people that the right thing to do is, I'm going to tell their parents, without knowing what their home life is? You're making a decision that's furthering the biggest problem we have with the kids, which is their anxiety, depression, and you're going to further kids to suicide. And if that happens, forget the lawsuits, the blood will be on your hands.
Madam Chairman, we've gone through the list. Let's move on.
Okay. I think it's only fair to allow everyone who, if you're in this room and you want to speak, and we've allowed one person to.
There was an issue where we were not getting confirmation emails. I had to call 7 times. I had to email Laura several times, and then she found out on Friday. It happens, but I'm saying he genuinely didn't get an email because I had to hunt down my email, and I had to go, and I barely got it. We signed up, he signed up. I didn't hear him say he had an email.
Yeah, I didn't get an email from him, but I did get your email.
Ma'am, did you get mine? I did not technologically challenged.
No, I believe I got one from you, but I don't believe I didn't take it to where you were asking to speak.
I think it's only fair.
It's the will of the board. Jim?
I mean, we've done what we're supposed to do. We've let everybody talk that wants to talk, so let's move on.
Okay. So I'll close it. And at this time, if it pleases the board, I was wondering if you'd like to move the resolution discussion up until now, and then we will conclude business later.
I think we'd be. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It really is impressive. And you deserve to hear what we have to say, and you'd have to wait through about another half hour of our business. So the chair is suggesting that we move the resolutions that you came to talk about up to this time, and I think it would be quite appropriate.
Yeah, I would second.
All right. So moved. All right, at this time, I will turn it over to the author of the resolutions, which is Ms. Quintern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you all for coming out tonight, expressing your voices, and that's the reason why I ran for this office, so that way everybody can be heard. And that includes parents, because they are part of this system. So I support these 2 resolutions for similar reasons, starting with the divisive content resolution. The definition of divisive is tending to cause disagreement or hostility between people. I'm sure we can see across the nation where divisive content has manifested in school curriculum. For example, in California, I know we've been asking for a lot of examples, but I'll be brief and be respectful of your time, and I ask that you be respectful of ours as well. In the California Department of Education, values and principles are to challenge racist, bigoted, discriminatory, imperialistic colonial beliefs and practices on multiple levels, connect ourselves to past and contemporary social movements that struggle for social justice and an equitable and democratic society, and conceptualize, imagine, and build new possibilities for a post-racist, post-systemic racism society that promotes collective narratives of transformative resistance, critical hope, and radical healing. There's further questions. For example, how is intersectionality related to identity? How is intersectionality related to systemic discrimination, racism, and marginalization? How can individuals or groups of people overcome and dismantle systemic discrimination and marginalization, including systemic racism? In the Black Lives Matter and Social Change lesson, the theme is social movements and equity. They critique empire building in history and its relationship to white supremacy, racism, and other forms of power and oppression. And they go on to say, some white Americans resentful of economic competition and the arrival of people from different cultures. There are far more examples, but these are all undertones of CRT and education. To bring it closer to home, we have schools in Northern Virginia telling children that sacrifice time away from their parents, moving every 4 years and not knowing if their parents will return home permanently injured, if at all, that they are privileged. Or better yet, statewide resources such as the Ed Equity Framework, which were found to be divisive and removed by the current administration, that states certain things like the social structures that exist in society are frequently based on race. Further, it goes to say, for instance, white people often ask Asian Americans where they were born, conveying the message that they are perpetual foreigners in their own land. They also quote Ibram X. Kendi, How to Be Anti-Racist, and if you don't know, he's one of the larger proponents of critical race theory. There's no such thing as a non-racist or race-neutral policy. Every policy in every institution, in every community, in every nation is producing or sustaining either racial inequity or equity between racial groups. And that's, again, Ibram X. Kendi, How to Be Anti-Racist. Drawing from critical race theory, this is actually in the Ed Equity Framework. Drawing from critical race theory, the term white supremacy also refers to a political or socioeconomic system where white people enjoy structural advantage and rights that other racial and ethnic groups do not, both as a collective and at an individual level. The content is divisive. This content is divisive as defined by Executive Order Number 1, advancing any ideas in violation of Title IV and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, including, but not limited to, the following concepts. One race, skin color, ethnicity, sex, or faith is inherently superior to another race, skin color, ethnicity, sex, or faith. An individual, by virtue of his or her race, skin color, ethnicity, sex, or faith, is racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously, etc. Thus, content is not merely divisive by opinion, but by an infringement on inherent rights. As far as historically, curriculum has been developed based on the intellectual needs of students. A first grader cannot comprehend the same things as an almost adult. This rings true for a sexual education as well. A kindergartner, for example, should not be learning about the details of reproduction, whereas a sixth grader should be learning about the changes to their bodies. Madam Chair, if you don't mind with the comments. If a parent chooses to start teaching things to their child in a different manner, that is their absolute right, and that's your duty. As read earlier, there is no such thing as a non-racist policy. That statement is not only false, but teaches the next generation that all order created, local or federal, is in fact racist. It's no wonder where we have so many people out there who have a problem with authority. If we teach that, then we are emphatically dividing the community up by not only race or ethnicity, but by power structures. This is the ultimate goal of Marxism, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that our students are not indoctrinated. Each child is wonderfully made, and they can do whatever they set their minds to. We need to be opening the doors to possibilities and not slamming them shut under the guise of equity. Teaching about a theory is vastly different than teaching through the lens of one. As such, if critical race theory is not in schools, it is only a higher level concept. It affirms that we should not be teaching it in K-12 schools. Another example would be the creationist theory. We have science teachers that could state, there's a God and he created the world, or are we teaching through that theory? There's creationist theory, there's evolution, there's the Big Bang theory, there's all kinds of theories out there. Moving on to the sexually explicit resolution. There are several reasons as to why hypersexualized content, especially at a young age, is detrimental to the development of students. Not only does it impact intimacy, but it contributes to body consciousness, food disorders, body dysmorphic disorder, and physical and mental health problems. In fact, Ted Bundy admitted that early pornographic access contributed to his later behavior in life. I'll wait.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody else who's being respectful of my time and everybody else's time in this room. I really appreciate that. Ted Bundy admitted that.
Okay, all right, order. If any more outburst, I will have you escorted out. So please be respectful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, Ted Bundy admitted that early pornographic access contributed to his later behavioral in life. Now, this is an extreme example, but an example nonetheless. An entry from the International Journal of Emergency Mental Health and Human Resilience expands on this concept. They first defined pornography as magazines, movies, videos, and pictures depicting people engaging in any type of sexual behavior or people posing partially or fully nude. This writer states pornography serves a sexual purpose each and every time it is used. There is no such thing as non-sexual use of pornography. Pornography provides a playground for deviant and violent fantasies to be developed and perfected, eventually leading to some individuals acting those fantasies out. Now, if you're not aware, in Virginia schools, there's books such as Lawn Boy, where it's a neighbor talking about their fantasies of a younger child in his neighborhood having sexual fantasies. I'm sorry, but that's not appropriate for children. We need to protect our children from harm, and this resolution would do just that. No matter if a student is taking a college-level course, they are not an adult and are under the care of Orange County Public Schools. This resolution, however, does not, and let me emphasize, it does not prevent content from being distributed. It just requires the parents to be aware and approve of the material. Additionally, this resolution will require schools to notify if children want to be identified in a different manner than their legal status. And this could be done at the beginning of the school year. It's well known that students in and this has been brought up multiple times tonight, the LGBTQ community have higher rates of mental illnesses. This resolution would allow schools, parents, and students to bridge the resources needed to assist the child in an equitable manner. Under this resolution, these students could be better protected against discrimination as the families would be more engaged in the upbringing of their child. Virginia Code 22.1-79.3 precludes surveys from being administered asking questions about sexual information, mental health information, medical information, information on student risk behaviors without notification to parents. Why would we allow teachers and staff to have these discussions without any consent? Moreover, these conversations could be construed as an unregulated therapeutic session without holding a license to practice psychology. Teachers may care, but they are not specifically trained to handle such conversations. I, as a parent, would not like an adult speaking to my child at will about any of these topics without my consent. It would be no different if a girl were to find out she were pregnant. Would we hide that from her family? Or would we get the parents involved to allow them to initiate health decisions for their children? We as parents are our children's gatekeeper. Further, these resolutions do not impact the social ability of students, only the curriculum materials and discussions from staff unless parental permission is acquired. The ultimate goal of these resolutions is to further include parental involvement in their child's education. That is why I urge you, board members, to join me in supporting these resolutions.
Okay, guys, order. Order. Any other board members like to comment?
Did you want to go?
We'll go in order. You go next.
Well, first of all, thank you for everybody that came out. I know some folks felt like I didn't respond, but I think you know what I do for a living. And during the course of my quarter-century career, I've seen a lot of death and destruction. And every day I wake up, I strive to go out into society and seek justice no matter who you are. When I go to a violent crime scene or I go to a Virginia Tech, you name it. I don't go there and take polls on who they are, what they stand for, what they don't stand for. Right now, I kind of look at our divided community, and while I obviously don't like anger and things like that. I also respect greatly the fact that civil discourse and the ability to debate healthy differences is a very good thing. Right now, I think about the status of our country and what we need to do. We got kids that are going to build spaceships. We've got kids that are probably going to go to Mars. We've got kids that are probably going to be the ones who work on those things that get us there. Not everybody's going to go to college. And right now, in this time, we need to bring out the best in everybody's potential. I know our teachers. I know our kids. I've coached you. And I know what it means to be you. All right? And what I would ask you to do is to keep pushing forward. And you may look at it and go, that's just lip service, just a talking head. But the reality of it is any parent that really wants to involve more into the school system. I'm a kid of a teacher, retired teacher. She passed at Christmas. And I know what she dealt with because there's a lot of times she took clothes to kids who didn't have them. So there's times that she had them cry on her shoulder. Well, what I'd ask you to do is yeah, we're sitting on vacancies. So if you want to teach and engage or be that instrumental person, get in the school system, do something. But tonight with the resolutions as written, I'm not going to support them.
Well, I guess it would be my turn. So Senate Bill 656, sexually explicit content. There are some amendments to that, and then also the full text I do have here. A lot of you read the bill, so I'm sure you understand what it is. In Chapter 100, it says, an act to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section number 22.1-16.8 relating to the Department of Education model policies, instructional material, sexual explicit content, and parental notification. That the Code of Virginia is amended by adding a section number 22.1-16.8 as follows. Instructional material, sexually explicit material, and parental notification. As in this section, sexually explicit content has the same meaning as provided in subsection A of the 2.2-2827. The department shall develop and make available to each school board model policies by ensuring notification in any instructional material that includes sexually explicit content and include information, guidance, procedures, and standards relating to. The number one is ensuring parental notification. I think that is the biggest issue here that we're all facing, is that the parents need to be informed. So that we cannot keep, as a teacher or an instructor or administrator cannot keep information or supply information to a student that is sexually explicit. Directly identifying the specific instructional material and sexually explicit subjects, permitting the parent of any student to review instructional materials that include sexually explicit content and provide as an alternative non-explicit instructional material and related academic activities. Each school board shall adopt policies that are consistent with but may be more comprehensive than the model policies developed by the department pursuant to subsection B. The Department of Education shall develop and make available to each school board policies pursuant, and then we have no later than July 31st is when they will come out with those. It doesn't say that we cannot start the policies now. It only says that they will develop those. We do have the ability to modify our policy or our resolution once those policies or once that is created by the department. I do have I did take some legal advice from a counselor, and one recommendation that they had on the sexual explicit content was to I propose an amendment to paragraph 6 that states, "Now therefore be it resolved that the Orange County Public School Board declares that students shall not be subjected to curriculum, including but not limited to written materials, classroom discussions, online materials, or any other supplemental materials relating to sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other sexually explicit subject without consent from their parents or guardians. The parents or guardians will be provided with all materials, links to materials, and syllabuses prior to signing a consent form so that they may make informed decisions." That I'm amending it, I will be voting yes for it.
I'll go next. I'll go next.
It has to be a motion.
I'm about educating kids. I'm about keeping kids safe. Yes, I also believe in parental rights. There are some things that we are to notify you of. Emergencies that happen to your children. An incident in a building that may endanger your child. Those are all things that I believe you have the right to know firsthand. To out a child who is not yet come out to their parents, I can't support. Having grown up a twin, I'm almost 60 years old, and my twin never could come out to the community and to his family until later. And I watched him suffer mentally and physically. Yes, if he was injured in school, my parents needed to know. If he did something wrong, yes, they needed to know. But that was his choice to make. I can't support it.
Well, first is I see these as two different resolutions. They're quite different in what they say. Where they came from is quite different. One comes from the legislature, the other comes from the governor. And how you deal with something that comes from the legislature is quite different than how you deal with something that comes from the governor. So I would like to deal with them one at a time. And the one that most of you are concerned about is this sexual notification. And I understand, if I didn't understand it before tonight, I certainly understand it tonight. The problem is, no matter what this board does tonight, it's not going to be over, because the General Assembly has said we have to pass a policy on that, but they haven't told us what it is. So I agree on this issue with what a lot of people said. Why are we voting on it now? Even if we vote it down tonight, it's going to be back up here in July, because we have to do what the General Assembly tells us to do.
We'll be back.
Okay, so my suggestion is to do exactly what some people said, and I move to postpone this motion talking about this sexually explicit material until the Department of Education provides model policies to the local school board as required in Senate Bill 656. Could I have a second for that motion?
Could I just add on a second that we got some major lifts going on right now, and that is we got this class of graduates that needs to be put to the top for the immediate time. We need to do a superintendent search. And then we have a CTE program that we need to really, those are three big things. So at a minimum, I support that. So that way it quells everybody. We can't do anything until the General Assembly finalizes what the recommendations are. So,
Are you giving me a second?
I don't support them as written, but I do believe that further guidance needs to be put forth so that everybody is understanding, has clear communication about what's being said.
Well, the motion is to postpone. That's a debatable motion, but it can't be debated until I have a second. Not hearing a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay. Okay, now we got a motion to postpone that's been made and seconded. Anybody want to speak to it? No one speaking. Madam Chairman, I ask we call the question on the motion.
Okay. Roll call, please, Ms. Byram.
Miss Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Hopkins?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Miss Page?
Aye.
Miss Quintern?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the vote as follows: 5 yes votes and no votes.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Hopkins, did you have?
Your second.
That leaves us with the second motion, and this comes from the governor. Actually, I can support it if I can get a couple changes. So my first motion would be, I've written it down here, I don't want to make a mistake. In the third whereas, delete the word content and replace it with 2 words, any idea. This is in it's the divisive content resolution. Do I have a second?
Well, first I would move to adopt this resolution because you have to adopt it first and then amend it as a secondary motion.
No, well, you mean to put a motion on the table
Right,
and?
yes.
No, I don't.
So I move to move forward with this resolution as presented.
I won't support that.
No. Point of privilege, Madam Chair. Point of privilege, Madam Chair. For all who are in attendance, excuse me, point of privilege. For all who are in attendance, you cannot discuss anything further without a motion in place. So I am moving to move forward with this as presented. If there is a second, then we can discuss and we can put an amendment on the table to approve second, and the amendment would move forward as according to Robert's Rules of Order. So Mr. Hopkins would like to propose an amendment, so I would like to move to put this on the table.
No means no. Why can't you guys get that? That's kind of the issue at hand.
Did you call for a second?
Hey, let's remain civil, please.
Okay.
Okay.
You made a motion and he said no. He didn't say.
But I had a point of privilege.
He didn't
Right.
want a second.
But with a point of privilege, that changes things. So I move to adopt this resolution as presented with the intention to hear Mr. Hopkins out on his amendment.
Is there a second?
I would second that. We would like to hear your
Okay,
amendments.
they've done what's parliamentary. They put a motion on the table and they had a second, so it's up for discussion. So she is correct. It would be time for me to make that motion to amend. I make the motion to amend the third whereas and delete the word content and replace it with 2 words, any idea. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, now discussion on it. The reason I did that is because in the resolution, people said here tonight that it wasn't defined what inherently divisive concepts were. But it is defined, it's defined exactly in the governor's order. And it's pretty much stated right here. He doesn't call it content, he calls it any idea. So if you want to follow what the governor has said, whether you disagree with him or agree with him, at least we should quote him correctly.
I move to call the
Okay.
question.
Call for the question.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
You roll
Vote.
call? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, we've discussed it. It's been made. It's proper. So we're voting on my wording change.
So, your vote?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Mike?
No.
Chelsea?
Aye.
No.
Sorry, I didn't hear yours, Chelsea.
Mine, aye. Yes, ma'am.
So 3-2. All right, motion passes.
Stop playing games with our education! I know this seems like stupid political...
Okay. All right. All right.
My second motion is in the be it resolved, I move to delete the phrase the former Board of Education equity framework and insert in its place inherently divisive concepts. I've provided these wordings to our clerk and our other school board members. They saw it this afternoon. I'm sorry I didn't make it quite as clear. And again, that's...
So we have a motion to change.
Yeah, I guess I need a second before I
Is there
say
a
anything
second?
more.
I would second that amendment.
Okay. Roll call, please.
We're going to...
Hopkins?
Okay, I think I've said it, but I want to make that change so again it goes back to talk about what the governor said. This whole resolution is really what the governor has said. If you can't read it there, is that he defines this as anything that's in the violation of Title IV and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So what he's saying is, this resolution is just saying, if you're breaking the law by violating Title IV or Title VI, we don't want you to do it. And it's really doesn't have anything to do with the students. It has to do with their employees. We're telling our employees, don't break the law. Okay, I'm ready for the questions.
Quiet. All right, Mr. Hopkins, you've made a motion. We've had a second. You said your piece. Call for the question.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead. Your vote?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Mike?
No.
Chelsea?
Aye.
No. Okay. All right. Any other changes, Mr. Hopkins?
No, ma'am. I think I have no other changes, and we're back to the original motion that's been made on this resolution, And I guess it would be open for any more discussion, but I think we're ready to call for the motion on the
Okay.
on the motion as amended.
All right. Call for the questions. Mr. Hopkins.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Mike.
No.
Chelsea.
Aye.
No. All right. Motion passes. All right. So, that being said, we have concluded public comment. We've also discussed the resolutions. I will entertain a 10-minute break, and we will
I'm just curious. Guys, we need to come back to order, please. I'd like to call this meeting back to order, please. Okay. Now let's get back to business at hand. All right. So, the consideration of the FY 2022-2023 budget. Dr. Sneed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this begins Superintendent's report and recommendations as a consideration of the FY 22-23 school budget that requires action. Before we begin, I just want to thank, because this is what it's all about, I just want to thank the students for coming and speaking. And please know that you're loved, and we will continue to work on supporting you in the ways that you need to be supported. I've been doing this for 33 years, and just, again, please know that you're loved and supported by people around you, by your administration, teachers, et cetera. Thank you. That being said, again, I just want to remind the audience very quickly about a presentation. This is much like what we've done in the past. This is not any different with regards to how the budget's been presented, but we need, at the end of this, I'd like to respectfully request action to pass this budget so that we can issue contracts to our employees so they can have the assurance that they know that they are going to have a future next year and get paid. And because the state has not passed a budget yet, it's okay. We have language in the contract that says that the contract shall be null, void, and unenforceable should the board fail to receive or to continue to receive funds which in its sole opinion are sufficient to meet its obligations hereunder. Now, that being said, the CFO, Mr. Gary Honecker, and I do not foresee such a difference between the House and the Senate budget that we should have any concerns. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick review. The positive budget impacts are no longer aspirational. They are, these items look like they will occur should the budget be passed and the funds be appropriated. And that is a 5% salary increase for all full-time operating budget staff. The teachers get an additional 3% for an 8% increase for teachers. And we're going to increase our master's stipend to be more competitive with the other locales around us from $2,700 to $3,000. And a new salary scale for our instructional assistant, which will be an average increase of about 8.8%. So what we're trying to do in our human resources and our budget department and finance department is to move the needle north for our instructional assistants. Additional staff that we've requested to be able, now this is additional, this isn't necessarily like, vacancies or anything. This is just additional staff that we requested because of the need. We request 2 special education teachers at Locust Grove Middle Schools where we'll place them because of our need. Our caseloads are extremely high there. Our Locust Grove Elementary School special education teacher, we need to add one there as well because of the need for our caseloads. Again, to remind the audience, all of these have been vetted all year long. Our budget process basically runs from the beginning of the school year throughout, and we vet that information with our department leaders and our principals. Also at Locust Grove Middle School, just a refresher, we world language teacher. Prospect Heights Middle School, we need to add a world language teacher. At Orange Elementary School, an English language learner teacher. That again would help us get our numbers where they need to be as per the standards of quality. At Orange County High School, again, an English language learner teacher and an English language learner tutor to cover all of Orange County Public Schools. The Locust Grove Middle School physical education teacher, math interventionist, we are aspirational there. We'd like 3, 2 for primary elementary, 1 middle school. We have data that supports the need for the math interventionist. In talking with the principal and our department heads, Locust Grove Middle School attendance for the front office staff, and then of course electrician apprentice for Orange County Public Schools. It may not be known, but we do a lot of our own work and we don't have to outsource a lot, and so because we have a lot of internal expertise, and so we would like to be able to add that electrician apprentice for safety reasons, if I recall correctly, in addition to just what it says, the apprenticeship. So that's just a quick and dirty refresher over what was presented in February, on February 21. Again, because we don't have a new House or Senate budget. I mean, we've had, we have the calc tools, but Mr. Honecker and I are still looking at the, the governor's budget piece. But essentially, our state funds, again, our governor's budget, or excuse me, state budget is over a biennium for 2 years. So the FY23 proposed budget, my fault, total state funds will be an increase of $3.5 million over this year at $34,972,000. The next slide. Federal revenues. Federal revenues are the smallest portion of our budget. We don't receive as much money from the federal government, nor does anyone. It's basically given to us, or we receive it through grants, Title I grants, the Carl Perkins grant, which is pretty minimal at $75,441. That goes alongside for our CTE, JROTC, and of course we had our ESSER funds, which add more money to our federal coffers than what we've recently received. And the ESSER funds, if I could remind the audience, are the funds that were associated with COVID. Thank you, Ms. Byram. We have our operating budget, our local revenues. Again, our local revenues, if I could just remind you, are just, it's not the county's budget that they transferred, appropriations. It's just the local revenues such as tuition, donations and gifts, et cetera, they all total for FY23, $109,000. Next. And then our operating budget, here it is broken down. So you can see the state funds us at about $34.9 million. Federal, again, I told you that's the smallest piece, really, at $4.4 million. And then a county budget is at $22.4 million for a total of a $61.9 million budget that we proposed on February 21st. And it still stands because, again, as you know, there's been no movement at the state. We're still waiting. Yes, ma'am. She can tell by my intonation that I'm ready. Very good. Again, for the expenditure side, of course, you know your revenues have to match your expenditures, so no surprise here. We are proposing the same, 61.9 for our expenditure side of the budget. And then our other funds, just a reminder, I'm not going to go and read all of these to you. I mean, they've been in the packet. We've seen them. But there's our food service, adult education, the next item. Our textbook and Head Start funds, again, after doing this for a few years, you guys know what's coming next. Debt service and capital, again, the county, our county funds, we're still going to receive our $567,000 in capital, and we also have that anomaly where we're still transferring $211,666 from operating budget to our capital budget fund. So that gives us a total of $778,666 for capital. And the FY23 budget for all funds is proposed is $68,966,455, and the expenditures match that $68,966,455. So on the left are the revenues, on the right are expenditures, and that, I believe, concludes. And so since nothing's changed, and I know that I know that we're in a position now that I feel like we're able to recommend passage of this so that we will be in a good position should the state pass a budget. We would be able to make some tweaks and get contracts out to our employees. Those are the two things that we are trying to do here and accomplish. And normally you like to have your budget passed prior to May 15th. And it's May 9th. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
So what would happen if the monies do change? How would the budget be re-evaluated? Would we go back and vote on it, or what would happen?
We would, Mr. Honecker and I would go and adjust the budget, the money, and put it in places that would, keep the budget whole. Our number one priority, and I think it's the board's too, is to keep the teacher salaries and the employee salaries with their raises. And we think we can do that. Is that right, Mr. Honecker?
If there's a significant change in the budget, we usually do bring back a final budget. But it's normally by now.
Yeah.
We've brought
Yeah.
the final by now. So,
Yeah.
with the state, again, we just like contracts out. But any changes that's made, we get in there. So we'll start.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
In other words, what I'm hearing is, and what I think what's been in the past, there's all kinds of categories in the budget. As long as the budget's coming out closely to the dollar amount that we've approved here tonight, they can move funds around without necessarily bringing it back to us. But if there's going to be any big change, in other words, we're going to lose $2 million or something, they're going to make changes and bring that back to us.
Or gain, yeah. We don't want to lose $2 million.
I like that game. I like that game.
Well, Sherry and I have been around long enough that we had to lay some people off, and that's something you don't. That's a life-changing event for me, because I've never been in a position and look at somebody and saying you don't have a job. And I don't ever want to do that again. That said, I'm ready to vote on the budget.
Okay. You'd like to make a motion, please, Mr.
Yes,
Hopkins?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the budget for fiscal year 2023 as presented.
I'll second it.
I just have one. What would be like the buffer zone of whether or not we needed to reapprove it or not? Would be like ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, once they pass the budget, I mean, Mr. Honecker and I'll get together and I'll tell you what, it sounds like once that's done, we'll just get together and present, an update. How about that? No matter what happens, like
Okay.
if the budget doesn't change, we'll present something and say the budget doesn't change. If the budget does change, and we'll present something and say this is how it changed. I think that's probably
That's fair.
You have to understand, the Board of Supervisors in the same way.
Yes.
They made a budget, and they've set out taxes for us to pay based upon that budget, but they don't really know for sure whether that budget's right or not. This is just sort of the way we operate.
yeah, with uncertainty. So. All right.
We have a.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you're good. We have a motion and
I
a
just want the budget.
second. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries.
All right, the next item on my agenda, or whatever it is, reports and recommendations, is approval of overnight field trip request. I'm excited to report that we have, for July 29 and July 3rd, we have an attendance to the 2022 Family Career Community Leaders of America National Leadership Conference, San Diego. That's up here. I think our chaperone is in the audience. It's probably, yes. And the student, too. How you doing? Very good. Yeah. Excited, right?
Yeah.
Good place to go.
Congratulations.
And then also we have our Orange County football for July 22nd to attend the 2022 Tiger Team Camp at Hampton-Sydney College. And the students will stay on campus in dorms. Coach Lohr is the sponsor. And so the other information is there. They're expecting about 40 student athletes and 5 chaperones.
Awesome.
So, and last but not least, we have our FFA. Again, it's exciting how FFA is growing. That looks like they're going June 27th to 30th at the end of this school year to the 2022 State Convention. That's at Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. Students are going to stay on campus in dorms. Sponsors Chase Berry, Andy McWilliams, and there'll be 11 students for a total and 1 chaperone, and they'll be transported through minivans. You have all your information, but it's kind of exciting to know that our students are going to be active and growing their knowledge over the summer with these.
Yep.
And I would like to request that we approve these.
Okay. Can we have a motion, please, to accept these?
I move to accept these as presented.
All right, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We'd like next to approve the local special education annual plan that was presented by Ms. Susan Ayler. She's the Director of Special Education. And I don't know if you don't have any questions, we'd like to recommend approval of that. Again, just to the audience, these things were presented at the work session.
I'll make a motion to approve these. Can I
My
have a
voice always
second?
activates those things.
I'll second.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
I apologize, Dr. Anderson. I set off Miss Byram's all the time. So the next item is approval of the 2022 Summer Meals Program. I believe that was presented by our school nutritionist, supervisor of school nutrition, Ms. Linda Blair, at the work session. I recommend approval.
I'd make a motion to approve the summer meals program as presented.
Thank you. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Approval of the membership in the Albemarle Regional Migrant Education Program. Again, Mr. Berry presented this at the work session and explained that this is just routine, that we would be recertifying our membership. I recommend approval.
Okay,
And I'll make a motion that we accept it as presented.
okay. Can we have a second?
Second?
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Approval of custodial supplies contract renewal. I believe Mr. Berry presented this at the last meeting. I'd like to approve a contract with Lawrence Environmental Group. He gave out the information. If there are no questions from the work session, I'd like to recommend approval.
I move to approve the contract.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It brings us to item G. Also at the work session, Mr. Arnold did a nice job of explaining the Boys and Girls Club lease renewal process. Again, I'd like, if there are no questions, I'd like to recommend approval of this lease.
I make a motion, we approve the Boys and Girls Club lease as presented.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right.
And last but not least, item H, under my report anyway, is the approval of Locust Grove Ball Fields lease renewals. Again, one is for the Locust Grove Elementary School lease agreement for next year, and the East Orange Little League Locust Grove Primary School lease agreement for next year. And that was presented by Mr. Arnold in the last meeting. Again, if you have questions, Mr. Arnold will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd like to recommend approval of these.
I move to accept the lease agreements as presented.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
That concludes my reports and recommendations.
Okay. So we've already had the discussion for resolutions, and Mr. Hopkins had asked that we add this agenda item.
Yes, this is taken from a GIS site, and it's basically roughly the site of our school. The little outline in, I guess it's turquoise, that's the wall property. That's, at least that's the biggest section of it. It's not actually all of it, because the private house next door to it is also in that property, and there may be some more. But this property, we've been told, is up for sale, and it has a lot of potential uses for the school system, mainly because of its location. Most of you know it better than I, but right to the right of the property, almost touching it, is what we call the field house. Is that Sports Center? Okay, I'll get the names right. And above that, on the top left, of course, that's the roof of the high school now. It doesn't even show all the property up there, but this is adjacent to the school board's property on two sides. And it just, in my opinion, it's something that we should try to get purchased for the county. I will admit that we're going to have to, even if we had the property right now in our name, we would have to spend big bucks to make it usable for CTE. But so it's not like we're just going to buy the property and then we can move in and everything's going to be great. But the location of the property is just so ideal. I think my school board members are all in concurrence that this is something that we should, if we don't take the chance to get this property now, some school board 15 years from now is going to be saying some things about us I don't want to hear. Anybody else want to talk about this? I do have a motion if we are in agreement.
Yeah, real quick, I know we're getting late, but the biggest regret, Mr. Hopkins, mentioned was the VDOT property that was a doable place that fell through the cracks when that was disposed of on the state real estate. And at any rate, I just think going into the future, it's very lucrative in that land is land, and in the proximity to the school, looking down the road, it's a win, in my opinion, for the amount of money that's being proposed.
Anybody else have?
I agree.
I guess at this point, it's just a matter of what the cost of the property is going to end up being.
Well, as everybody knows, the school board can't purchase property, but we can ask our board of supervisors to purchase it for us. And to that end, I make the following motion. The school board instructs the chair to have a letter addressed to the board of supervisors prepared for her signature requesting that the county purchase the wall property for the school system.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries. All right. So now we have.
You have to understand, it's just a request. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but if you don't ask, you don't get.
Do you have a Blue Ridge virtual
Yes.
school report, Mr. Hopkins?
Yeah, I can get back to my agenda here. There's an attachment with that, if we could put it up. The Blue Ridge Governor's School has had Mark Caraway as its director for the last 17 years, and he retired. So this is a press release. The Blue Ridge Governor's School went through a search process to find a new director, and her name was Wanda Elliott. She's familiar with the Blue Ridge Governor's School because she served on the joint steering committee. For those not involved with this, steering committee meets once a month to work out problems and has representatives from each school. She was from Fluvanna High School, and she's been on that committee for many years. And so she's quite familiar with what how the school runs. We had a joint school board meeting just last week where we voted her in as a new director, and we put out this press release. If it's on our website, but if you want to see it, it's on the Blue Ridge Governor's School website. So I wasn't directly involved in selection. We had a selection committee. Dr. Sneed was headed that group. But I think they found a real wonderful candidate, and that, I mean, we approved some money and some other things at our meeting, but as far as I'm concerned, getting a director for this school was really important. Our Blue Ridge Governor's School, there's 18, I believe, governor schools across Virginia, and a couple of them have buildings. There's one in Richmond that has a building that people go to, and there's one up in Fairfax County. But of the ones that don't have a building, we are the largest one in the whole state. We have about 600 students from 7 counties in this school thing. And of the 7 counties, I think we're the second largest. I think we have about 134 students in the Blue Ridge Virtual Governor's School. I think maybe Goochland has maybe 2 more than we do, but outside of that, we're quite big in this 7-county thing. So the program is really, really wonderful, and that's why I and the other people involved here were wanting to get a director that would really carry on the program. Actually, I think it's a wonderful job. It pays about what a principal would get, but you don't have all the headaches, ball games and scheduling that a normal principal would have. And I mean, you just get to work with talented students. And basically, you get to do a lot of stuff on your own because you're sort of out there all by yourself. So you have to be a self-promoter to get the thing done. But actually, I think if you're the right person at the right time, it's a wonderful position. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will do closed session certification, please.
Pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Orange County School Board convene a closed meeting for the following: discussion of personnel or the performance of a division employee as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for resignation, termination, transfer, employment, salary adjustment, and retirement of employees, and discussion of pupil personnel as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A2 for early admission, waiver of compulsory attendance, out of county, out of district requests, and student discipline.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're in closed session.
Bye-bye.